trying to snap a 5-game losing streak. Right now, the Brew Crew a game and a half ahead of the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs lost earlier today to the St. Louis Cardinals, so they could finish the day with a win today against the Phillies, 2 games up in the National League Central. Our pitching matchup here tonight, Matt Garza will get the ball for the Brew Crew against Aaron Nola for the Philadelphia Phillies. He has been a very good right-hander for the Phillies this year. And hi, everybody. We welcome you from Citizens Bank Park. Great to have you with us. Jerry Augustine is filling in for Bill Schroeder. We're thinking about Brock here this weekend as he is attending the memorial service for his late mother. So Augie is here. Great to have you with us, buddy. And Jerry, we look at this ball club right now. They've lost 5 straight games, but what we heard from Craig Counsell is no time to panic. He liked the way they played in Pittsburgh.
And they sure did. I'll tell you what, sometimes you're going to have the ups and downs. You're going to go through those losing streaks, but you have to like what this team saw in Pittsburgh. First of all, Zach Davies come out, getting back to the old form we saw last year, commanding the strike zone. Junior Guerra getting that fastball back, convincingly throwing fastballs and using that split finger very effectively. The defense, Orlando Arcia continues to make this defense much better. And I'm going to tell you, offensively, you've got 2 guys that are swinging the bat very well, Domingo Santana and Travis Shaw. These guys are leading the club right now. They're batting in those good RBI spots. I'm going to tell you what, we need a big series from them here in Philadelphia.
Now, Travis Shaw with 4 home runs in the month of July, hit a big 3-run home run in Pittsburgh. Ryan Braun not in the lineup today. That's big news. We'll get into more of the roster shakedown when we continue as we get you ready for first pitch. A new series starts. Brewers Phillies with Garza on the mound. It's coming up.
Milwaukee Brewers baseball on Fox Sports Wisconsin is brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer. By Hupy and Abraham, voted best, rated best. Hupy and Abraham, tell them you mean business. And by Menards. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. Citizens Bank Park, Philadelphia. Tonight's game on Fox Sports Wisconsin,
presented by Potawatomi Hotel and Casino. And the Phillies hit the field, which means the Fanatic exits the field, which is always kind of a sad moment when the Fanatic leaves. 91 degrees. It is very steamy and humid here in Philadelphia this weekend. Aaron Nola and the Phillies have hit the field. Before we check in on the starting pitcher of the Phillies, let's first check in on our Emmy Award-winning reporter, Sophia Minard. A lot of news today, Sophia.
Thanks, BA. You're right. Our scoops from the clubhouse brought to you by Car Soup. Plenty of injury news to fill you in on. First of all, Ryan Braun missing his 3rd straight game. Still dealing with that sore wrist. Craig Counsell said even though Braun has seen improvement, he maybe even wanted to play tonight. However, they just feel like it was better to give him that additional day, try to continue to keep him as close to 100% as possible. So Braun still considered day-to-day with that wrist. They're hopeful he'll be in the lineup tomorrow. Eric Sogard and Willie Peralta have rejoined the team. First with Eric Sogard, he spent 2 games with the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers rehabbing that left ankle. He feels good. He's likely to be activated tomorrow. Willie Peralta spent some time in AAA Colorado Springs rehabbing that right calf. So Peralta is likely to be activated at some point over this weekend. So we've told you, plenty of moves still coming here over the next few days.
All right, Sophia, good stuff. Thanks for that update. And now let's give you the starting lineup for the Brew Crew tonight. So without Braun in there, Craig Counsell will have a combo in left field and batting 3rd. He's got Domingo Santana in the 3 spot for Braun, and Hernan Perez will be the left fielder in Braun's spot. So it goes VR, Thames, and Santana, Shaw, Perez, and Pena. Brett Phillips gets to start once again in center field with Arcia at short and Garza rounding out the starting 9 on the Potawatomi Brewers batting order. And Jerry Augustine, that is the lineup that will match up against Aaron Nola.
Aaron Nola making his 15th start. He's 6-6 with a 3.54, and boy, he's really come into his own his last 5 games. He's 3-1 with a 1.78 ERA, and in those 5 starts, he's had 35 innings pitched, but 41 strikeouts. So really throwing the ball well right now.
A power sinker ball pitcher, Aaron Nola, and he'll match up against the Brewers for the 2nd time in the last week. He pitched against Milwaukee last Saturday. Jonathan Villar's in the leadoff spot. He's ready to go. First pitch on the way from Nola, and it is outside for ball 1, and we're off and running in Philadelphia. Phillies are coming in playing pretty well, as a matter of fact. They scored a bunch of runs against the Miami Marlins. Scored 20 runs in their last series, in a 3-game series. And so that gives them 25 runs scored in the last 4 games they played. They beat the Brewers in the final game of the series in Milwaukee Sunday. That started the Brewers on a 5-game losing streak, which they're trying to end tonight. And the Phillies open up this series with a lot of confidence in their offense right now. And Nola's been one of their best pitchers this season. Brewers got swept in Pittsburgh. Played 4 good games, just couldn't get over the hump. And no moral victories in Major League Baseball, but the Brewers did play well, had some impressive defense, as you pointed out, Augie, by Orlando Arcia, among others. There were some timely hits, just not enough, and you got to give the Pirates a little credit for the way they pitched against Milwaukee.
There's no doubt about it. The Pirates, you look at the way they've been pitching, they're like 2nd in all of baseball in ERA in the month of July with about a 2.2 ERA. So they've been throwing the ball, both starters and the relievers, very well right now.
Well, the Brewers lost that 4-game series, lost all 4 by a combined 6 runs, so they were certainly in every game. And I like what Craig Counsell had to say before the game to Sophia, that we had a chance to win all of those games. We're ahead in all of those games, and if we keep playing like that, we're going to win more than we lose. As VR draws a walk, and the Brewers get a lead man on here in the 1st inning. Let's give you the Menards Phillies defense. Daniel Nava gets a start in left field. Odubel Herrera will be in center with Nick Williams, the red-hot Nick Williams, in right. Around the infield, it's Michael Franco, Freddie Galvis, Cesar Hernandez, and Tommy Joseph. And Andrew Knapp will do the catching today. Williams has been a force for the Phillies, and you might remember the grand slam he hit last Sunday at Miller Park in the final game of that series. Here's Eric Thames now, takes strike 1. Thames back in the starting lineup. He and Braun both out yesterday. Thames comes in with 23 homers, 44 driven in. Had a good game against Nola last Saturday. Thames with a couple of hits, including 2 doubles. One of those doubles was just a few feet from a center field home run for Eric Thames. So pretty recent memories for these Brewer hitters against Aaron Nola tonight. I always wonder who has the advantage in a situation like that when you're facing a pitcher for the second time in less than a week.
Well, then it always comes down to being able to throw your pitches where you want them. And as a hitter, you know where he's going to pitch you kind of. You don't change your style that much. You stay with what got you to where you're going. But it's all about being able to throw the pitch where you want it. Getting ahead of hitters is so important.
Nola played his college ball at LSU. That makes sense with a last name like Nola. And the pitch to Thames on the ground. Phillies have a chance to turn it. Hernandez to Galvis. Throw to first, not in time. Thames legs it out and avoids the double play. Eric dealt with so many leg problems, hamstring tightness, calf tightness in the first 6 weeks of the year. We never really got to see his speed. He's a lot faster than most saw early in the season.
He sure is, and he started changing his workout routine, I think, as he got through the season. Games went on, he's not used to playing every day, and changed his workout routine, and I think it's really helped him. It seems like he's running much better, he's getting around the bases, and feeling much better.
So Thames legs it out, beats the double play opportunity. So a 1-out runner at first for Domingo Santana. Santana back in the 3 spot in the batting order, and as Braun has missed these last few games, Santana has been called upon to hit 3rd on occasion. This will be the 15th time he's hit 3rd this year, and he rips one into left field, a base hit for Domingo Santana.
Right there, he got a ball on the inside part of play. And one thing he does very well, we talk about Domingo, how well he hits the ball back up the middle. But here he gets a ball on the inside part of play. He's so quick on that inside part of play, pulls his hands in, drives it into left field for a base hit.
Santana now with 5 hits on the road trip. 3 of those came in one game against the Pirates. Had a couple of days in the leadoff spot on this road trip as well. Santana is aboard for Travis Shaw. Santana and Shaw, a couple of bright spots in the Brewers batting order in Pittsburgh. And Shaw on the ground to Galvis, and this will be a guaranteed double play, and that will end the inning. That's what he does. Aaron Nola, when he's right, he gets ground balls. And a double play ball ends the top of the first. Matt Garza on the mound. The first, here we go to the home half of the first with the Phillies coming up Friday night here in Philadelphia. And this Phillies ball club at 32-61, the worst record in the majors. Potawatomi batting order for Pete McCann, and he's got Cesar Hernandez, Freddie Galveston, Nick Williams. In the middle is Franco, Nava, and Joseph, and then Herrera, Knapp, and Nola. Rounding out the starting 9 for the Fightin' Phils. Trying to put the pieces together after winning a series against the Marlins. And Jerry, it's going to be Matt Garza on the mound, and now this becomes a very important start for Garza with his ball club having lost 5 straight games.
Yeah, it's a veteran start. He's been here before, and he'd like to do nothing better than to stop the losing streak. He is 4-4 with a 3.84 ERA. He's making his 15th start. Really nice in his last 3 starts. He's 1-0 with a 1.65 ERA.
He pitched last Sunday against the Phillies. Went 5 innings and 1 run in that game. First pitch for Garza is away for ball 1. Now the Phillies had an off day. That's why Nola is up today, having pitched last Saturday against Milwaukee. And while the Brewers have been playing every day, Garza falls for game 1 of this series. And there's a high fastball that's in there. In that start against the Phillies last time, Garza could have gone deeper into the game. He was pitching very well, had just 71 pitches through 5 innings, but the Brewers were down 1-0 at the time, and Craig Counsell felt like he needed to take a shot with a pinch hitter. That pinch hitter was Brett Phillips, and Phillips delivered with a 2-run home run. So that's why the
first career home run.
First career Major League homer for Phillips. And that's why the start for Garza was cut short.
Yeah, he was throwing the ball very well. You know, the one thing with Matt that he's been really able to do is locate his fastball. We talk about 2- and 4-seam fastballs all the time, but he's really been able to locate that 2-seam down, and at times he'll go up at that 4-seam. It's been very effective for him. That with getting that breaking ball over, he's been throwing the ball pretty well.
He's got good velocity tonight early, already in the 92-mile-an-hour range. Garza's been hovering around the 90-mile-an-hour range. He's not the hard thrower that he once was, and he's okay with that finally. Took him a while to get to that point. Knows he's got to pitch with his off-speed stuff. We see a lot more curveballs, change-ups from Garza. Throws the 2-seam fastball as well. That one's in there at 93.
The one thing we'll see out of Matt Garza, especially early in the ball game, is we talk about rhythm, pace and rhythm with Matt, and you'll see him at the beginning of the game kind of slow, kind of going through trying to find out what way he feels on that mound. As he gets going, he speeds up delivery and really has good pace.
Well, that's his best fastball yet, but he walks Cesar Hernandez to start his evening. And let's give you the Menards Brewers defense tonight. No Braun in the lineup if you're just joining us. Ryan's out with a wrist injury, is available to pinch hit. So Perez is in left. Brett Phillips, very talented defensive center fielder, and Domingo Santana in right. Got 3 great arms in the outfield tonight for the Brewers. Shaw, Arcia, Villar, and Thames around the horn, with Manny Pena behind the plate catching Matt Garza. Arcia put on a defensive clinic in Pittsburgh. Did have an error in that series, but he added a number of highlight reel plays in that 4-game series. Garza to face Freddie Galvis now, the switch hitting shortstop. That is a rare sight. A Matt Garza throw to first. That was an extreme changeup to first base.
I would say that's probably his best pickoff move right there.
It's a step off, and that had to be registering in the 50-mile-an-hour range.
He doesn't do it very often, but you know, he's just trying to take his pitching to another level. He has some problem throwing to the bases, but right here he just wants to make sure that he holds Hernandez close.
I think he just added 10 miles an hour on that last throw.
He did.
He went from 50 to 60. Pretty soon he'll be able to win a snow cone in the old speed pitch. It is well chronicled. Garza does not like throwing to the bases, but it's something that he has wrestled with and continues to try to get through and get around. The combination of Garza and Pena tonight, while the base runners don't have to necessarily worry about the firm throw to first, Garza does a good job holding runners and delivering to the plate, and Pena has a very strong throwing arm.
There's a strike to Freddie Galvis.
Yeah, there's a number of ways in which you can hold guys on first base as a pitcher. A lot of times you see the guys make the quick moves over. A lot of times it's just a matter of how much time you hold the runner on. Sometimes you hold them for a little bit longer place. You do a quick step to the plate. Sometimes they're just a natural step. And those are things that Matt Garza's kind of incorporated in his delivery. That really helps him, makes him a little bit more difficult to run on.
1 ball, 1 strike on Galvis. Garza fighting the command a little bit, falling behind 2-1. Walked the first batter. Garza started the year on the disabled list with a groin injury. He did not make his first start for the Brewers until April 24th, but he has been healthy since. Been able to maintain his spot in the rotation, minus that collision he had with Jesus Aguilar. Even though he went on the disabled list for that, a 10-day DL trip. That's not what you would consider a pitching injury. Arms healthy. Had a chest contusion actually when he crashed into Jesus Aguilar back in June.
I think anybody that runs into Jesus Aguilar, if you come up healthy, I think you've got to consider yourself pretty lucky.
He knocked Garza down like a rag doll that day, trying to cover first base. But for the most part, it's been a healthy year for Garza, who's in the final year of his contract. He signed the largest contract by a starting pitcher in Brewers franchise history. A $50 million deal, covered 4 years, and this is year number 4. Runner goes, and a swing and a drive into right field. That is way back and way gone. Freddie Galvis with a 2-run home run off Garza, and the Phillies strike first.
Right here, he got behind in the count and came down the middle. Galvis put a nice swing on a fastball right down the middle. Was able to hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Galvis is not a big guy, but he packs a punch, especially in this ballpark.
You know, the one thing you talk about this Philly offensive ball club, they've been swinging the bat fairly well lately. Is you much pitch, the best way is you have to pitch ahead, and you get right now what Matt's doing, struggle a little bit with his fastball, finding command of it. You got to pitch ahead against this kind of ball club.
2-run home run by Galvis, his 11th of the year, gives him 40 runs batted in. And the Phillies are on the board, and Garza will start it up all over again with Nick Williams at the plate. It has been almost a month since Garza allowed his last home run. Got to go back to June 24th against Atlanta. Garza had back-to-back starts where he only allowed 1 earned run across those 2 starts. Got a win against the Orioles in his first start in July. That was July 5th. 6 1/3 scoreless in that game. That was part of a shutout that day. Brewers shutting out Baltimore 4-0. And then Garza giving up just 1 earned run his last time out against the Phillies. So 2 on the board before some have gotten to their seats here at Citizens Bank Park. 1-2 the count on Nick Williams.
You know, at times that Matt and what he's done with himself, you know, as he came up to big leagues at one time, he was that power guy. Everything was power fastball, Although this year, he's kind of gone out and reinvented himself. He's more of a locator, commander now. And every once in a while he gets out there, he rushes and he loses that command. And that's what's happening right now.
There's a bouncing ball over to the right side. That's VR who's got it, and a race to the bag is in time for the out. And the Phillies want to take a look at this. This is going to be a close call. Williams can really run, and it looked like he might have beaten Garza to the bag. This will be interesting.
Just a little chopper here, and it just looked like Thames is going to get it. Stops. VR gets it and throws it. Very close play at first.
Well, the foot was there, but I don't know if the ball was in the glove. This will be a good look at it. Yeah, it'll be tough to overturn. So Pete Mackanin and the Phillies say play on. Not enough there in their minds.
to challenge that. So that'll be a 4-1 putout for the first out for Matt Garza.
That's the first thing you do as a pitcher. As soon as that ball is hit to that side of the field, you have to get over to first base. Matt Garza did a nice job of, as soon as the ball was hit, even though it was a chopper, thinking that Eric Thames might come up with it, to bust over and make the play.
One away for Maikel Franco now. Franco is the Phillies' best power threat. He hits right in the middle of that batting order. Tommy Joseph has one more home run than Franco. But Franco got the big contract. 14 home runs, 52 RBIs this season. And he's the guy that usually makes the Phillies go when their offense is churning.
Yeah, he has struggled early this season. Just couldn't find himself, swinging a lot of pitches away down in the dirt. But seems like in the last month or so, is starting to swing the bat a little better.
Yeah, he was hard on the Brewers in Milwaukee. Had 5 hits in that series. Drove in a couple of runs in 3 games. He was 5 for 13 against the Brewers. Maikel Franco and Odubel Herrera see their combined numbers last weekend against the Brew Crew at Miller Park, including 7 extra base hits and an OPS over 1,200, nearly 1,300. And it was pretty much a 2-man show until that last day. Now the Brewers know, and everybody else knows, that Franco has a chance and a willingness to chase. One of the problems is if he doesn't chase early and you get behind early and you're forced to come in the strike zone, he can do serious damage. And that's where Garza's got himself right now, 3-1. Hitters count for Franco. He pulls one foul. Augie Garza has fallen behind each of the first 4 batters he's faced tonight.
Yeah, he's gone 3 balls on 3 of the 4 hitters he's faced, and that's one thing you've got to stay away. It's going to catch up on you sooner or later. He's got to work on the command, but Matt does it every once in a while early in the ball game, trying to find that release point, that good command.
Derek Johnson watching on. Franco, a little jam shot into left field, and Perez with a sliding catch. Heck of a play by Hernan Perez. Boy, he closed the gap quickly as that ball hung up there. And out number 2.
That's a tough play that Hernan Perez did here. Franco puts a good swing on it, but kind of got off the inside part of bat. Hernan had to measure that up. He had to charge that ball. At first, when those type of balls are hit, you have to look and see where that ball is going to be. And it seems like he took the full swing on it, but he made a nice charge on it, slid, and made a nice catch.
Well, what a transition he has made from a shortstop and an infielder to an outfielder. That is as pro as you can do it right there. They teach that for their outfielders. Ed Cedar's in charge of the defensive outfielding play, and one of the things Ed Cedar preaches to his outfielders is to get into a slide like that to keep your eye level the same as the baseball. And Ed Cedar's got to be proud of that. That was textbook by Hernan Perez.
And it's also tough when the guy puts that full swing on it, hits off the inside part of the bat. To judge that ball off the bat gets very difficult. Hernan does that so well. He just gets a good break on the ball. He's turned himself into a very, very good outfielder.
Craig Counsell calls him perhaps the best defensive outfielder that they have when you put all the facets together. That one's in the air to right field, playable for Santana. Daniel Nava is retired to end the inning. But a quick strike for the Phillies. 2-run homer by Freddie Galvis, and the Brewers are down.
As we head to the second, and Craig Counsell and his team, they're trying to fight back from a 5-game losing streak and coming off of a 4-game sweep in Pittsburgh. But Counsell is very confident, saying, listen, this notion that we're hanging on or that these games are do or die with the National League Central lead now just 1.5 games, he said, quite frankly, that's just not true right now. He said, there's still so much of the season left. And he said, if you look at that Pittsburgh series, he said, there were tough losses, but overall it was a great series. He said, we had the lead in 4 games. We had runners on base in each of those games, certainly left a lot of men on. He said we weren't getting the timely hit there, but he said more than anything we were putting pressure on the opposing pitcher, and he said our run prevention has been very good. He says if we can continue to pitch the way that we did over those 4 games and play defense the way they did, he said he's very confident this team will get out of it.
Yeah, I like what he had to say before the game. There's a great attitude, Augie, around the clubhouse. The music was loud. I think everybody is anxiously watching this team to see how the pressure is getting to them. We start this second inning with Hernan Perez leading off against Nola, down in the count 1-2. And if they're acting, they're good actors, but they're not showing any signs of succumbing to the pressure, even though on paper it looks like, having lost 5 in a row, you might. It's a slow roller to short. Galvis, an excellent shortstop, makes a play, and Hernan Perez is out number 1. So what do you see from the Brewers with all your big league experience around clubhouses?
Well, first of all, I think there's a good mix of some veteran players down there that have been around for a while, some guys that know the game, and really the guys that know the game, the younger players look up to them. But it's about these young players with their enthusiasm, and that's one thing, that culture that Craig Counsell wanted to bring to this club, is to bring enthusiasm, like coming to the park every day, give that good 27 outs, and whatever happens, we'll take it from there. And these guys, this team has bought into it, and they're going to go through some adversity. They just did, and we'll see how they can get out of it this weekend. But it's all about staying loose, going out, and just doing your job.
Well, they've been without Ryan Braun in the batting order for the last 3 days as well. That's a big bat to be on the bench for Milwaukee. Manny Pena fouls one off his foot.
I think another thing there is, you know, you got Ryan, who they want to get healthy, and probably a reason why he's in today. Just give him that extra day's rest. But you know, it's about opportunity, getting guys opportunities, keep them strong, keep them ready to play. And when you have those injuries, other people get to step up, and that's what is done with this ball club.
That speaks to the talents of Hernan Perez as well, as Pena sends one to center field. Backing up on it, Herrera. Any other place in the ballpark, and you're touching them all, but Pena hits it to the deepest part of Citizens Bank Park, and it is out number 2.
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of what Nola's done. He was up here last year, and his last several 9 or 10 starts, he had a 7 or 8 ERA. Decided to go to winter ball, and not winter ball, but fall ball, and do some work on his delivery. Changed his delivery around a little bit. Now he's a real balanced pitcher. You see him with a fastball, curveball, 4-seam fastball, 2-seam fastball, and really now a pretty good change.
Facing Brett Phillips, and he swings at the first pitch. That's deep into left field, and that is up and gone. A home run for Phillips. He does it again against the Phillies. Brett Phillips with his 2nd career major league homer. Both coming against the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Brewers are on the board in the 2nd inning. 2-out blast by the 7th place hitter, Brett Phillips.
I'll tell you, one thing he's been doing all year is just playing a little bit of power. Here he gets a good fastball away, puts a good swing on it, stays on top of that ball, drives it the opposite way. It's a good swing on a pitch down and away from him.
Powerball home run number 2 in the career of Brett Phillips, just getting started at the major league level. What a swing that was. Phillips hit 17 in AAA this season. Boy, he packed some punch.
I think you got to like the way he goes about his job. He came into spring training and say, I can't be somebody else. I got to learn to be a better myself, improve myself. And I'll tell you what, he's equal to the task. He's gone out and did just that.
2 outs for Orlando Arcia, who's down 0-2. Trying to follow up the Phillips homer. Arcia hitting .282 coming in this game with 9 homers. 8 of those went over the fence. 1 was an inside the Parker.
You know, we talk about Nola's curveball. A lot of guys, you talk curveball, you're thinking of them more of a 12-6 or over the top, the ball that goes straight down. Nola has more of a curveball that is more of a 2-8 breaking ball. Has a little bit of east-west movement in it. Very sharp, very big, and is really effective. Right there we see it. Throwing the ball on the outside part of the play.
Nola just turned 24 last month. Posted a 1.78 ERA over his last 5 with 41 strikeouts. Arcia in the air to right, playable for Williams, and that will end the inning. However, Brett Phillips, he continues to shine. A home run for Phillips, opposite field this time, second of his big league career, and the Brewers are on the board in the second inning. All right, thanks a lot, Jeff. Yeah, what a story that was today. A 9-run inning for the Cardinals. And the Cardinals beat the Cubs 11-4 behind Bowman. Carl Edwards Jr. took the loss in that game. Brewers can bump their lead in the division to 2 with a win tonight. Right now it's at a 1.5 after the Cardinal win. And how about that comeback for St. Louis, down 3-2 in the 8th inning after their general manager John Mozeliak called them out and addressed the culture of the St. Louis Cardinals and perhaps needing to be looked at. There's a shot to short on a couple of hops to Arcia. Nice pickup and a strong throw to first in time for out number 1. Tommy Joseph retired. Garza giving up the 2-run home run in the first, gets his first man here in the second.
You know, Villa, you talk about this NL Central, and you know everybody's saying who wants it, who's going to take it. No one's running away with it. But when you really see these teams go head-to-head, you can throw the records out of the books because these teams go out and play. You never know what's going to happen. You see what happened today with the St. Louis Cardinals and the Cubs. These are games that are tough, and we saw it just several days ago as we were in Pittsburgh. You go play, they're all very tough ball games.
Well, the Brewers going through their slide right now, trying to pull out of it. Every team's going to go through a slump. And the other part of the next couple of weeks is what kind of additions will these contending teams make? How will they change their teams
You talk about all the additions last year around baseball. The one that made the most impact was Aroldis Chapman to the Cubs to lock down their bullpen, and the Cubs would go on to win the World Series, and Chapman was a big part of it.
And it's so important that the toughest outs in baseball is not the first 3 outs of the ball game. It's 25, 26, and 27. They are the toughest outs in all of baseball, and I'll tell you, Aroldis Chapman really made a difference for the Cubs last year.
Garza facing Odubel Herrera. 1 man out here in the 2nd inning. Herrera, the Phillies center fielder. We're going to visit with Matt Arnold next inning, assistant general manager. And Matt's with the ball club. He's going to come on, and we're going to talk about the trade season, get into some minor league talk, what he's seen from the Brewers here lately. So Matt's coming up in the 3rd. Three balls and a strike. Garza facing Herrera. 1 gone in the 2nd inning. Full count now. Garza's been in 3 full counts in this game already. This is the 7th batter he's faced, and already 3 3-2 counts. So the pitch count is high at 33 already. Gave up a walk and a 2-run homer, then has settled in. He's retired the last 4 on a very warm night in Philadelphia. Temperatures soaring in the low 90s with high humidity. And yes, the ball is jumping tonight. Got to stay hydrated. Payoff pitch. And a bullet foul. Hey, what a catch. I don't know if that's his dad or not. Seems like it. He just saved him a welt. It's got to be his dad. They look just alike.
Those are the type of balls that you say you got to charge that ball. Wow, what a nice play.
Oh, that was headed for Dad's ribs.
Yes, it was.
Look at that. I got you covered, Pops. What a play. You're going to see that one plenty tonight. That's a big-time catch. Way to go, Junior. And Garza misses outside, ball 4. 2nd walk he's allowed. Well, speaking of those Cardinals, the Crew and the Cards renew their rivalry Tuesday, August 1st through Thursday, August 3rd. 3-game tilt at Miller Park coming your way. You can check out the Brewers' complete upcoming schedule and reserve your spot today at brewers.com. 2 night games and then a day game in the 3-game series against St. Louis.
Some of that big divisional play.
Brewers will have the Cubs and the Cardinals on the next homestand. Cubs will be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the Cardinals Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
You know, we talked about the divisional play. The rest of the year we have 64 games. 35 are in the division, and 23 of those 35 are home in Milwaukee. So fans are going to get to see a lot of the NL Central.
1 away for Andrew Knapp, switch hitting catcher for the Phillies. Yeah, baseball designs those schedules so you get a lot of division games at the end of the year, create some serious drama. Riding that roller coaster, and it's already underway. Craig Counsell had a great presser today, just commenting on, I mean, from all of us from the outside, we're into the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows. That's a base hit into left. Andrew Knapp slaps one to the opposite field. And it's going to be 1st and 2nd with 1 away now for the Phillies.
That seems like he's just having a little bit of a problem locating the pitches that he wants. Usually he's pretty good with the fastball, locating him, just getting the ball when he wants to go and getting it just out over the plate enough for Knapp to put a good swing on the ball.
Garza has had some great moments. Been a part of some great moments against the Phillies. Remember, Garza pitched for the 2008 Tampa Bay Rays. Pitched in the World Series. Rays Phillies in 2008. Garza was the MVP of the ALCS that season. And a veteran guy who knows the landscape right now with his team losing 5 in a row can ill afford to have a poor start. He's given up some hits. He's walked 2. And now 2 on with 1 away for the pitcher, Aaron Nola. Is up there to bunt most likely. And he takes a strike. Nola does not have a sacrifice bunt this season. Garza would love to keep it that way. Just 1 hit for the year. Brewers are bringing Thames in, crashing in. He'll try to pick up any ground ball, even if it's back to the mound, to try to pick up Garza. That's Bennett back to Garza, and he can't make a play. Garza just can't do it. The easy play is to pick it up and throw to first, but Garza struggles with that. And he tried to make a miraculous force play at third. Cannot do it, and the bases are loaded.
It was interesting how the Brewers played that on it. Usually when you have someone like Matt who can't feel the ball that well, throw the ball, what you will do is you'll have the shortstop break the third base and charge the third baseman. But with the situation, the hitter at the plate, they decided not to do it, and it cost the Brewers right there.
Yeah, probably would rather have Shaw just concede the runner advancing to third and just try to make the play for Garza to make sure he gets an out. That'll be a sacrifice and a fielder's choice. No error. And now the base is loaded. Thames has got it coming to the plate out there on a force. And out number 2 as Cesar Hernandez bounces to Eric Thames. That's a big out for Garza to get. The bases are still loaded, but now 2 gone.
Here's a pitch on the outside part of the plate. He hit right to Eric Thames, and he makes a nice play on it, knowing where he wanted to go, getting ready, makes a good solid throw to Pena, gets the force out at home.
Hernandez too fast to double up at first. Well, the bases are full for Freddie Galvis, coming off a 2-run home run last inning. Put the Phillies on the board quickly tonight. Bounces that one in. What a play by Manny Pena. Boy, that one was not close. Bounced a foot in front of home plate. Pena still able to block it. Man.
Perfect technique right there. Getting down, blocking the ball, getting the glove down below. Nice job by Manny Pena right there.
You can really see how the Phillies grounds crew has softened up that area in front of home plate with a sinker ball pitcher on the mound in Nola. That might have helped him. That ball just died when it hit the area in front of home plate.
You know, we talk about this Brewer defense. You talk about Eric Thames there. That ball usually is a double play ball. They'll go to second, try to get the double play. But Eric Thames, ball hit a little bit slow. Pretty smart up there to come back home and get that lead runner.
And Hernandez is a great base runner. Would have been tough to double up. Now Galvis turns on one. It is hooking, and it is foul and a mile. Yikes. That was a flick of the wrist by Galvis from turning this into a 6-1 ball game just like that.
Those pitches are coming, good pitches to hit. He's making mistakes when he's behind. That's why it's so important when you pitch against a team like the Phillies who have been swinging the bat well, you have to pitch ahead.
So Garza and Pena will go back to the drawing board. 2 balls and a strike on Freddie Galvis. Garza has 2 outs, but the bases are loaded. Got to make a big pitch. The Brewers are expecting Galvis to pull the ball on the ground. They have infielders shaded over. Now a back pick at second, and the tag not in time. Pena trying to cut down the pitcher running at second base. Boy, how brave is Manny Pena. He trusts his arm. With the bases loaded, he fires to second base. Would have gotten Garza out of the inning. It was close too.
I tell you, he's got such a good arm. Always thinking, working with the infielders, lead off a little bit too much. He's gonna make a snap throw and try to get you.
3 balls and a strike. Nowhere to put him. That's a jam shot. And that's going to hang up for Santana. Boy, the Brewers walking the tightrope in this second inning. Garza stranding the bases loaded. Nobody across. Still 2-1. Bases loaded jam in the bottom of the second inning. Phillies cannot score. Now it's 2-1 as we go to the third. And as promised, Assistant General Manager Matt Arnold joins us in the booth. Man, you're a hot topic right now, Matt. Everybody wants to hear from baseball operations. First of all, welcome to the booth. Thanks for spending a little time with us.
Awesome. Thanks, VA. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. The Brewers, if I'm not mistaken, have not won a game since you've been on this road trip.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And
yeah,
so
we're trying to break that.
That has some fingers pointing your way as well.
A little bit, yeah.
This has got to be a fun time for you, right? I mean, you guys are in a pennant race, maybe earlier than you expected, although when I talked to David Stearns and Craig Counsell, they say they put no limitations on this team. But here you are, you're in it in first place. What's this like for you right now personally?
It's awesome. It's been a lot. It's been a great run, and I think if anybody told you, hey, we'd be in first place, you know, in late July, we would have definitely taken that. So yeah, it's been a great run so far.
So give us an idea of what happens now. I mean, we can't ask you specifics. I wouldn't even do that to you, but what's the logistics of baseball ops? Like, you're here, David Stearns is where, your scouts. I mean, what's going on in your department?
We're bouncing all over the place. We have a lot of scouts on a lot of different ballparks, and we have guys in the office working on some analytics. And David's on the phone constantly. I'm on the phone constantly, just making sure we're kind of in the loop. I think that's the biggest thing, and making sure that, you know, if something happens, we're going to try to know about it to the best of our ability. But you know, right now we're gonna get set up and head back there towards July 31st and get ready for the deadline. We'll have a bunch of people come in, some scouts come in and help us out and try to make some good decisions, hopefully.
If you have any breaking news, feel free.
I certainly will.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Just making sure
Absolutely.
we know that.
You talk about trades now, much different than it has been in the past. There must be so much that goes into trades with the scouting and finding if a guy fits your style of ball club.
Absolutely, Augie. Yeah, we do a ton of work. A lot of it never happens. A lot of people never see it, and that's okay. You know, it's part of the process. And just spending time and making sure we're thorough. I think that's the most important thing. And thinking about it, you know, when you talk about a decision, especially when you're in first place, you know, there's the opportunity to add here. At the same time, we also want to keep an eye on our foundation here. And David's always said that message. I think we're kind of, you know, we're all on the same page here. We want to keep one eye, I think, on the present and also one eye on the future here.
Matt Garza leading off for the Brewers, and he lines one. That is a fair ball. Hits the sidewall. Garza will stop around first. And a base hit for Matt Garza. Well, maybe the worm is turning here. Garza gets out of a bases loaded jam and now singles to right to start the third inning. The Brewers with a base runner from their 9th place hitter and their pitcher. And now back to the top of the order, and Jonathan Villar. We're visiting here with Matt Arnold, Brewers assistant GM. He is the one that we hardly ever hear from because he's always somewhere else. So we do see David Stearns quite often. And I know you can't get into specifics and we wouldn't even ask you that because there's so much in play right now. But philosophically, where are you guys on the trade market right now as we get within the last couple of weeks? VR bounces to second. Garza runs into the out, and now VR is out at first, and a double play wipes out the leadoff single. Good play by Hernandez. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things here, we're always trying to be opportunistic and stay in play, I think, in a lot of different things. And so, like I said earlier, David's on the phone a lot, I'm on the phone a lot, just making sure we're connected around the industry, and a lot of things, certainly, like I said earlier, they may or may not happen, but we just want to be looped in, I think, on any potential conversations that are happening around the league.
So when you guys get to the point of the trade deadline, and first probably should, with 2 outs here, clear up the July 31st trade deadline period, and then what happens after that in August, the waiver trade deadline period.
Yeah, that basically on August 1st they turn into revocable waivers, which means that a player would be put on waivers and you have a chance to make a trade, I believe, within 48 hours. And if you don't come to an agreement, you can pull that player back. And if you want to put that player out again, then you run the risk of losing that player and the contract as well.
And this period we're talking about now is the non-waiver trade deadline on July 31st. Thames goes down the line, slicing foul. So that's why there's so much talk about it, so much freedom of movement between organizations, because you don't have to do any of that paperwork and get through other teams to make those decisions.
You know, there's so much talk, Matt, about controllable versus non-controllable guys. They're guys you kind of are only going to have for your time. How much thinking does the organization, do you and David, take in when you're making a trade?
Let's get you to answer that if you don't mind staying another half inning.
Sure.
That was a quick inning. Brewers get a base hit from Garza, but a double play and a strikeout. More with Matt Arnold when we continue from Philly. Third inning, and Matt Garza back to work facing the Phillies, and we're back on with Matt Arnold, the Brewers assistant general manager, as we get near the trade deadline. So Augie's question before we were rudely cut off by an Eric Thames strikeout was about dealing with controllable players versus players that, as we would say, are rentals, meaning they'd be free agents at the end of the year. And what are the pros and cons of each of those versions of players that you might be seeking?
Sure. Yeah, and you look at our team right now, I think what we have built, especially on the offensive side, we've kept that in mind with a lot of these guys that'll be Brewers, hopefully here for a long time, or the potential to be. So that's a big part of the equation. And if you're looking to acquire those guys, you know, especially in a trade deadline setting, you know, they're probably going to cost you a little bit more. And at the same time, if they're guys with less control, obviously they'll cost a little bit less.
Brewers minor league system has gone from one of the worst in all of baseball to among the best now. So you do have a lot of chips to trade. Speaking of the minor league system, can you give us just a little car wash on what's going on? We see Lewis Brinson is going off in AAA right now. 18 consecutive games where he's been on base. Here's some of the numbers for you. 346 average in AAA. He's gone down after being sent down and performed really well. Maybe tell us a little bit about Corbin Burns, because every time we look up, he is on some kind of minor league player stat sheet.
Yeah, all those guys have been great. You know, Lewis came up here in a very short stint, made a really good impression on our staff. I know Craig and those guys felt, you know, really good about him as a person. And then to have him go down here, obviously we had a little bit of a crunch here in the outfield, but to have him go down and then perform the way we had hoped has been great to see. Obviously Corbin Burns has really, really pitched great. You know, that's been a lot of fun to watch him just come in and dominate every night out. And, you know, we're keeping an eye on him, I think, longer term. You know, we want to make sure that he's healthy and is good to go, but he's been a really, really special guy coming out of the draft for us last year.
You know, when you're going through trade discussions, you're talking to other assistant GMs, other scouts, and all these different names start popping up. I mean, just from an organizational perspective, it's got to make you feel good that you're getting hit on all of these different kinds of players, and you have a multitude of players that you can be in discussion with an organization about.
Yeah, no question. I mean, if you look up, you know, a year ago, the three guys you had up there weren't here. You know, and we were fortunate to acquire those guys, and whether it was the draft or in different trades, and that's been great to see, and just continuing, you know, the path of just adding talented players to the system. And look, we don't know exactly what these guys will end up being in the long run, but just adding some talented guys that are also good people is really what we've been targeting.
You know, it's interesting to watch your process in spring training. You had a lot of these young guys up for a long period of time, and they got a lot of playing time. Now you come up, you have an injury or two. We're out here, we see Brett Phillips back up for the second time. We saw Lewis Brinson up here, just getting a taste of it. Is that part of the plan that you guys were thinking a little bit about?
Absolutely, yeah. I think especially in spring training, getting those guys exposure, and then getting them up here in the big leagues. I think giving them that opportunity to show what they can do here, even if it's just a taste to ride on the bus for you know, a trip or two, and just get that experience, I think is really valuable.
And how does it play in when you're in a pennant race with these young players? There's some different decisions that have to be made. You can't just let them ride if they're struggling, right?
No question, yeah. And the better the team, the harder the decisions become, certainly. And so we've been pretty proud of the guys this year so far. So it makes those decisions always a little bit tougher. 8th
pitch of the at-bat against Nick Williams, and he pulls one foul. Matt Arnold is our guest, VP of the Brewers, also the assistant general manager. Now, you've been around baseball a long, long time. Been a scout. You've been front office with the Tampa Bay Rays, among other organizations. You got a good story for us from years past? I mean, anything like trade deadline deals that maybe didn't happen? All those great teams with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've off the top of my head, you know, there are probably a lot of stories.
A base hit by Williams after a long battle, 9-pitch at bat. Comes up with a single to start the inning. Go ahead.
It's been fun to be a part of those conversations. I think that's the biggest thing. You know, you get into the room and just having those conversations and throwing out the wild trade that may never happen at all. I mean, you know, and then actually chasing it down and saying, hey, this might actually happen. You know, those are a ton of fun, and you know, throwing out some wacky ideas and staying up late and talking about it with the guys and you know, getting up early and getting back after it and talking with the guys on the road and the guys in the office. I think that's the most fun part of it for me.
So no truth to the rumor that you were going to trade Evan Longoria once? Or Ben Zobrist?
We throw a lot of stuff at the
wall. Now, what was your first year with the Rays?
In 2006. So I was a Devil Ray over there.
And so, yeah, you came in the Devil Rays, and certainly you come into this ballpark. 2008 World Series. Phillies won that World Series. Phillies knocked the Brewers out of the playoffs that year. And Matt Garza actually pitched Game 3 for the Rays. He pitched pretty well in that game and gave you guys a chance to win the game. Garza, I believe, went 6 innings in that game, maybe 4 runs. Mm-hmm. Different kind of pitcher these days.
He's been great this year too. I mean, he's been really good, and just going back to those years, I mean, he was tremendous there as well.
Was the MVP of the ALCS that year. It's a high fly ball to right. Santana didn't see it right away. Now he's got it. And on the track, he'll make the catch for out number 1. That Tampa Bay franchise where Matt came to the Brewers from, I mean, that really was, especially in that run, when you guys finally were able to topple the mighty American League East, the Yankees, the Red Sox. I remember Joe Madden. I remember a big brawl there one year, too, that he finally said, look, we are here. We have arrived. And do you get a sense, having seen that develop as it did in Tampa Bay, culminating in a World Series in 08, do you get a sense that that's happening now in Milwaukee?
To a degree, yeah. I think there are definitely some parallels there when you think about the energy. I think that we have. I mean, the biggest thing downstairs, you have that similar kind of energy. I mean, Craig, is the leader down there, no question, and the coaches do a tremendous job sort of bringing the guys to life. Even in a tougher stretch with the last few days, those guys are not down at all. If you were down there early, you saw some really, really good energy down there from those guys, and you wouldn't know it at all that they had lost a few games in a row. There's really positive energy there, and we had a lot of that back then, and I see a lot of that here as well.
I remember Craig Counsell interviewed for the Rays managerial position. That would have been in your era. Were you part of? You were right in the middle of all that, weren't you?
We did have some conversations with him. Yeah, they were good conversations for sure. I look back fondly on those conversations. I'm glad he's here.
Now it's all coming full circle. Craig decided at the time to come back and wasn't sure he wanted to manage at that point. He wanted to get some front office experience, and that's why he came back to the Brewers in a front office capacity, and then here he is as the manager of the Brewers. And the guy who was so disappointed he turned him down is now his boss once again.
Well, I think you could say that probably Craig brought Matt back to Milwaukee.
Oh, maybe so.
Maybe so. You never know.
I wonder how
he's smiling here, so we don't know.
Matt Arnold, the Brewers assistant GM, with us as we play ball here in Philly. 3rd inning. Garza has a runner at first, and Nava takes a ball high. Well, all kidding aside, you guys do seem like you are very well connected, just between you, David Stearns, the GM, Counsell, the owner, Mark Atanasio, and that's really, I mean, that's what you guys had in Tampa Bay, and that's really what makes things work at this level, at this day and age.
Yeah, we really do. I mean, we communicate multiple times a day and spend a lot of time together, and it just happens to be that you work with really good people.
Runner takes off. Pena's throw to second base in time. What a throw by Manny Pena. Man, can he throw the baseball, Augie.
He just continually does such a great job behind the plate. You look at how quick he is, first of all, from behind the plate. He's got a very strong, accurate arm. Throws the ball right to the base. Easy tag for the out.
Wow. Finishing kick on that throw by Manny Pena. All right, you're an old scout, Matt Arnold. I know you don't have a stopwatch. What do you think on the pop time there?
Good, above average.
Yeah. Above average. Nice.
You know, Matt, you guys are in the process, and you look at, we didn't know how long it was going to take. Where in your process do you feel that the organization is right now? You look at what's happened this weekend. You got Sogard come back, you got Peralta. You got some very tough decisions, and that's not even talking about those good minor league players have. Where are you in the process right now?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of good players coming back, and we've talked about that a little bit in terms of acquiring players from the outside. You know, we have a lot of really good players coming back internally as well. You know, a healthy Willie Peralta and Stephen Vogt, you know, coming back hopefully soon, and Brandon Woodruff coming back off the DL, Eric Sogard coming back off the DL. You know, we have some really talented guys coming back here soon. Obviously, Chase Anderson being a guy that, you know, would make a big impact here, as well as what he was doing at the start of the season. So those guys right there in itself are really exciting to just continue to add here, and they're hopefully right around the corner.
You know, part of that process is, as you go along, is to make players better, and we've seen that. We've seen Matt Garza do a little reformation. Chase Anderson. These things are done because this organizational has gotten a new culture.
Yeah, you know, I think it starts with Craig, obviously, and his coaching staff, and you look at a guy like Matt Garza. These guys are always learning. They're always getting better. And one of the things that starts, you know, at Tom Flanagan in the minor leagues, which he does a tremendous job of instilling learning, you know, a growth mindset, I think, with our players right when they walk in the door. And that doesn't stop even here at the major league level, even with a guy with the experience and pedigree of somebody like Matt Garza.
Now, knowing your kind, baseball operations executives, you're monitoring things when things are going poorly, maybe more so than you are when they're going well, right? Like you're evaluating when things aren't going well and how people are doing their jobs and executing. And I mean, what do you see out of Craig Counsell? I was very impressed with the scene today before the game, the press conference he had with all the media. I mean, he brings that air of confidence to the ballpark every day. And the guy's been a winner. We know about his World Series pedigree, but he brings a lot of that to this ball club.
For sure. Yeah, it definitely starts with Craig downstairs and his leadership, and he shows that every day. And he's a very even keel guy and gets fired up when he has to, and is a very intelligent baseball guy. I love working with him and talking baseball with him every day is a treat for me.
Closed the doors yesterday. Counsell gave just a quick little, I wouldn't call it, I mean, I guess it was a team meeting, but it was just a quick reminder that Craig Counsell wanted to present his players. And everything we hear today about it was that it was a pretty inspirational moment after the game yesterday in Pittsburgh, and you like hearing that. You certainly don't like a manager who calls a lot of team meetings, but sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah, he was tremendous in that conversation. I think just getting the guys that believe in themselves and continue to build upon what we have. We have a good team. Not a lot of people, I think, believed in us at the start, and here we are in first place, so we can still do this, you know. And there are a lot of really good inspirational moments there that Craig delivered, and he did a great job with that.
Now, these players certainly know the pedigree of Craig Counsell and how successful he's been, and been a star in the World Series, been an MVP of an NLCS. And those words ring true, even when Eric Sogard says, yeah, I remember Craig Counsell. He was one of my favorite players growing up. It happens. Right. Just like Augie was one of my favorite players growing up. When I was a real little kid, Augie.
Real
little kid.
Real
you were
little.
one of my favorites.
Thank you.
Really small. Tiny. Ball and 2 strikes. Garza trying to grind his way through this inning. Foul out of play. Matt Arnold's been our guest. I know it's not easy for a general manager, assistant general manager, to go public this time of year because you're trying to keep all those plates spinning, but you guys are doing a great job, and you're starting to settle into Milwaukee, and Milwaukee feels like home for you. It seems like you guys have a nice thing going right now.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a whirlwind. You know, I haven't really had a lot of time to reflect, honestly, but the community's awesome. The team is awesome. Just working with the guys every day, with David and Craig and Mark and all the guys that we have in the office and the scouts out in the field. It's just been a lot of fun to work here and be here so far.
Yeah, and all those scouts.
You know, as you were walking in today, I asked you how busy you are, and you had that smile on your face. Yeah, I'm pretty busy right now. How many texts will you have to follow up on after this interview?
Just a few. I can feel my phone shaking a little bit.
They're just swinging a foul. Yeah, I wonder how many. Maybe you should check it. Would you like to check your phone right now?
Yeah.
That would be fun.
A little bit.
Maybe we have some breaking news. You know, as fans, we love this time of year. I don't think any sport offers this kind of drama, excitement, chatter, talk show fodder than the trade deadline. I mean, the hot stove is pretty intense too, but you get into the trade deadline with a pennant contending team, it's a blast. And you deserve a lot of the credit there, my friend. Thanks for coming on with us. You're off the hot seat.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you guys very much.
Check those messages. We'll be here if you need to let us know. Okay.
Absolutely.
Matt Arnold, assistant general manager. He's been a good sport. Philadelphia, and sun setting here in the city of brotherly love. Brewers and the Phillies tonight, game one. Say every strikeout, every web gem, every walk-off. You can catch all the exciting action at Miller Park for just $29.99 per month with the Ballpark Pass, the crew's newly monthly ticket subscription that guarantees your spot at every remaining Brewers home game. Sign up today at brewers.com/ballparkpass. It's a warm night, but it's a beautiful night for baseball in the throes of summer in Philadelphia. 2-1 ball game. We go to the fourth inning now, and Domingo Santana will lead off. Nola misses high for ball one.
It was nice having Matt Arnold stop by.
Appreciate that. A lot of guys would shy away from the public flogging at this point, but you know, I mean, we try to get stuff out of them. We want them. My vision for that always is there is a breaking story that he can then tell us at that moment. We didn't get it this year, but we always try.
You know, it's so amazing how much he really enjoys Milwaukee. One of the games when Manny Pena hit a home run and fans were going nuts, I believe it was against the Mets. After the game, I did the interview with Manny, and I was walking up, and he comes up to me, he said, these fans in Milwaukee, they are terrific. And I said, just wait, they are always at the ballpark. They cheer and they love baseball.
There is nothing like pennant race baseball in Milwaukee, and Mark Atanasio all the way down, Rick Schlesinger and his team. I mean, that's what we live for in the summer in Milwaukee, and it's been that way for a long time, back to the County Stadium days and back to the Milwaukee Braves of the 50s, and certainly the Milwaukee Brewers, and you're hoping they'll have that chance this year again. I can tell you this, folks, that Matt Arnold, David Stearns, Craig Counsell, Mark Atanasio, the owner, they want nothing more than to bring the postseason back to Milwaukee. These are very competitive people. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks leading up to the trade deadline. Santana on a 3-2 count takes a called strike three. Did not like the call. That was right on the edge.
Here we go. We see pitch right on the outside play. You know what? Nolan's been really commanding the outside part of the plate very well. Here we see a fastball 95 with a little bit of tail. That's that two-seam sinker that he's really developed in this past year. Has really been an effective pitch for him tonight. You look for him. He's in the 30s. He's in his fourth inning, around 34, 35 pitches. That sinking fastball has been very effective.
Well, to hit 95 on the outside corner, that's impressive. Now you start looking like Roy Halladay in a Phillies uniform when you can do that.
And you remember Roy Halladay quite well.
Man, he had that pitch down. That was the pitch that really turned his career around. He dropped his arm slot. He started working on what they call the glove side of the plate, meaning the outside corner for a right-handed hitter. And when he started hitting that spot down and away to a right-handed batter, the comeback sinker, it was lights out for a few years there with Roy Halladay. You have a no-hitter in the playoffs right here at Citizens Bank Park.
If you have a good one and you put it on the good spots at the plate, it's very, very difficult. And one thing, I was reading an article on Aaron Nolan. He was more of a fastball curveball guy, and he learned this two-seamer down in the strike zone, how effective it can be, and he started getting some confidence in his last 5 outings. It's really shown.
One away, Travis Shaw takes a ball inside, didn't miss by much. 2-2 the count. Shaw with a career best 21 home runs. He's hitting .295 coming into play today. He did bounce into a double play in the first. And Shaw pulls it foul. Yeah, it's great to have Matt. We appreciate his time, and it's always fun to hear from a front office executive about the perspective he sees and getting into the minor league stuff. Corbin Burns and the year he's had, and I know these guys are keeping a close eye on Louis Ortiz as well. He was part of that deal with the Texas Rangers for Lucroy last year, and he's got a chance to be a good one. Starting pitcher, big guy from Bakersfield, or beg your pardon, Burns is from Bakersfield, and Louis Ortiz is from the Sacramento area.
You know, it all goes back what David Stearns said when he came over here. He was going to obtain, develop, and retain good young players, and he's doing just that.
strikeout for Nola. He picks up back-to-back Ks. Actually has 3 in a row now. Going back to the 3rd inning with Thames.
Here we see that we talk about the pitch, that sinking fastball, that running fastball. He's really had it. And that time he just took a little bit off, a little bit of a changeup, which he's developed, and it's really been a good pitch for him. So you're talking about hard fastball sinking down. The changeup, it has the same type of movement, hard to pick up.
So much movement with everything he has. And he starts Hernan Perez with a hook. A swing and a miss. Strike 1 to Perez. All 3 runs courtesy of home run balls tonight. Freddie Galvis, a 2-run shot off Garza in the 1st. Solo home run, Brett Phillips in the 2nd. And another breaking ball. 0-2 the count on Perez.
Yeah, a lot of pitchers in the big leagues, we talk about the overhand curveball, and if you talk about days of Burt Blyleven and some of these guys, the pitch would be more of a 12-6 type breaking ball going straight down. Pitchers today throw it more on a little bit different angle. It's a more of a 2-8 style, which has some break both ways. It's become a very effective pitch in the major leagues.
So you talk about the hands on a clock, 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock, because you hear about the old 12-6 curveball,
Absolutely.
right? That's the straight over the top, from the top to the bottom. Not many throw that kind of curveball. That's a fastball, just missed.
It's that comeback pitch again. He throws the ball in the outside part, just missing. And you know, when you're effective with that, you can start playing with defense. Here we see the pitch on the outside corner coming back. It's that good sinking fastball, that tailing fastball. They call it the 2-seam fastball. That comes back, and it's a very, very good pitch if you can command it.
2-2. He's going after that same spot, and in the exact same spot, gets a called strike 3 this time. Well, either it is or it isn't. I think that was Perez's argument. But Nola strikes out the side, and 4 consecutive Ks sends us to the bottom of the 4th. Milwaukee Brewers baseball on Fox Sports Wisconsin is brought to you by the Wisconsin Lottery, reminding you to please play responsibly. And by Toyota. Let's go places. Now the old City Hall in Center City, Philadelphia. 2-1 our score. The Phillies lead the Brewers. A lot of early scoring here, and both pitchers have settled in somewhat. Garza has had a lot of pitches in his first 3 innings. That was pitch number 71 as we start playing the 4th. Garza's 3 innings of work, he's gone 25, 21, and 26 pitches. So this figures to be a pretty short outing for Garza. And he could use a quick inning facing the bottom of the order in the bottom of the 4th. Herrera going to pop up in the infield. VR will make the call.
And there is out number one. Odubel Herrera is gone. And one away for Garza in the fourth.
You know, it seemed like in the last of the third inning, about the last 2 outs, Matt started getting better command of his fastball, better locating it, and that curveball very effective. And when he does that, sometimes as a pitcher, you start the game, you don't have it real well, and you keep working at it. And that's one thing Manny Pena does a really nice job behind the plate, is staying with a pitch that he knows that he needs. And it seems like lately, the last few outs, Matt has been throwing the ball a little bit better.
Garza worked around a bases loaded mess in the second inning. There's a fly ball left field. Perez on the run toward the line. He'll watch that into the seats. Andrew Knapp had a base hit to the opposite field his first time up. And Knapp still thinking opposite field. Fouls that one back. 0-2 the count. Knapp is a switch hitter, much better as a left-handed batter. He's hitting .287 as a lefty, hitting .154 as a right-handed batter. Augie talked about Garza's settling down a little bit, seeing a lot more strikes here lately. So 23 of his last 31 pitches are strikes. After falling behind early and often, he got into 3-3-2 counts in the first 6 batters he faced. He has settled in somewhat. He's got one out here in the fourth. A 1-2 count on Andrew Knapp, 8th place hitter in this Philadelphia batting order. Got the pitcher due up next. In the air, left center, hit pretty well. Long run back for Phillips. He's at the wall. He leaps and he makes the catch. Brett Phillips flying up against the wall. What a play that was by Brett Phillips in his first ever game in Citizens Bank Park. Acts like he's been here plenty.
I'll tell you one thing that I've noticed about him, watching him a lot in spring training, is the break he gives. He has great baseball instincts. Right here, what does he do? He gets back to the wall, watching the ball, but get back to the wall where he can make a nice play, goes up in the air and makes a nice catch. But it's all about that first break, that first step. He really has great baseball instincts.
Phillips, counsel was raving about his defensive prowess earlier today, how good he is, how fast he adapts. I mean, this is a big chore for a guy to come into a place he's never seen, especially as a major leaguer. Ed Cedar doing a lot of work with Brett Phillips before the game today, having him play all the different angles, making sure he took a walk around the warning track, the short wall in center field, the high wall in the left center field, and that's a lot to absorb. This is no ordinary cookie cutter wall here in Philadelphia.
No, there's a lot of different angles that you have to play, and boy, Brett really got a nice jump on that. And you know, he's got this good baseball instincts. You can talk about breaks on a ball and all those things you want, but you can't teach the instincts that some players have, and Brett really has great baseball instincts.
Well, that's a big second out for Matt Garza. Now he's got a chance to make this a quick inning with the pitcher at the plate. He's got Nola 1-2. Nola had a bunt in the second inning. Garza tried to field it and play it to third. Could not. Ended up loading the bases with one out, and Garza got out of the mess. And that'll do it. Inning is over. Quick one for Garza. A 10-pitch inning. 3 up and 3 down in the fourth. And how about this play by the Maverick? Brett Phillips flying high to pull an extra base hit away.
Philadelphia, the Brewers trail 2-1 as we head to the 5th. Our T-Mobile Unlimited baseball break. The Red Sox are out on the West Coast. They are getting ready to play the Angels. Starting a 3-game set, Chris Sale will take the mound, and over his last 3 starts, he's gone 1-1, a 1.66 earned run average. You see he has struck out 11 batters in each of those last 3 starts, and he's fared very well against the Angels in his career. Undefeated, 5-0 in 8 games. The Seattle Mariners are trading for pitching. Yesterday, they had acquired David Phelps from Miami, and today they made a trade to acquire Marco Gonzalez, the lefty from St. Louis. So we heard from Matt Arnold, the trade deadline nears, and there will be a lot of action coming up over the next few weeks to keep up on.
Trader DePoto, right? Nobody's made more trades than the Mariners general manager, Jerry DePoto. Speaking of Mariners general managers, a former GM of the Mariners, Jack Zarinzik, and former Brewers amateur scouting director, was in Pittsburgh. He's doing some broadcasting for the Pirates. And we had a chance a couple of days to visit with Jack. He's doing great. Left a great legacy in Milwaukee. He was the guy that was responsible for drafting under the head of Doug Melvin, but responsible for drafting guys like Ryan Braun, Prince Fielder, Ricky Weeks, J.J. Hardy, Corey Hart, and the beat goes on. That was Jack Z. And he is now enjoying his post-GM life as a broadcaster for the Pittsburgh Pirates, doing their pre and post game shows, doing the Jerry Augustine bit. Augie's here with us this series. If you have not been with us or just dialing our way, Bill Schroeder is with his family this weekend. This is the weekend where the Schroeder family are honoring Bill's late mother, who passed away a couple of months ago. They're doing a memorial service tomorrow. Bill is from this area. He's got a lot of friends and family in this area, so in the Philadelphia area. So they'll be making the trip up to New Jersey, and Rock handling all those arrangements. So he'll be gone for the weekend series here against the Phillies. Rock will be back on Tuesday as the Brewers go to D.C. So in the meantime, Jerry Augustine is pinch hitting. Great to have you with us, Augie.
That's good to be here. And Rock, he wanted to have his family all there. It was very important to remember his mom in a special way, and so they were having it this weekend.
Yeah, we're thinking about Bill and his family. This will be a difficult time for them, but a time of closure as well. So feel free to send your thoughts, prayers, condolences to Rock via his Twitter page at Brewers Fan Camp. He checks that regularly, and I'm sure he'd appreciate it. Manny Pena starts it for the Brewers. Nola's been really good here lately. He has 4 consecutive strikeouts. Brewers got a leadoff single from Matt Garza in the 3rd inning, and then Nola got a double play ball from VR and has struck out every batter since. And make that 5 in a row for Nola as he strikes out Pena for out number 1 of the 5th inning.
There's that sinking fastball or changeup that he has. When you look at what he has, he's got that real good 2-seam fastball. Here's a changeup on the inside part of the plate. He's been able to command the pitches, especially that changeup down inside on a right-hander, down away on the left-hander. It's been really effective.
Got so much movement on his pitches. Dropping that arm slot has put him in a slingshot position as he misses with a breaking ball to Phillips.
Yeah, he throws from a mid 3/4 arm slot anyway, and when you get down there, you can have the opportunity to get a little bit of movement depending on how you hold the ball. And with that 2-seam fastball and that changeup, he really gets a lot of movement.
1-0. Brett Phillips at the plate, responsible for the only run the Brewers have on the board. Phillips a solo homer in the 2nd inning. You see his night at the plate, presented by Wendy's. 2nd career big league home run for Phillips. Back in the starting lineup for the 2nd consecutive game. And Phillips hits that one into deep left center. And over to make the play is Nava. He just missed it on the bat. Out number 2 for Aaron Nola. And he has now retired 7 straight after the Garza single. So 2 outs. Here comes Orlando Arcia now.
slings a strike in there, a fastball at 95. 0-1 the count. Arcia flew out to right his first time up. That was after the Phillips home run that ended the inning. Nola's only given up 1 hit since. He's given up 3 hits tonight. Boy, fooled him with an off-speed pitch.
There's that changeup again, throwing it off. You know, one thing you do is when you command the strike zone with all your pitches, you can start expanding, and that's exactly what he's been doing on the last 2. He did it to Manny Pena. He's done it right here to Arcia. Expanding that strike zone, getting hitters to swing at pitches out of the strike zone.
That's good hustle by the ball boy, by the way. Well done. Applauded for his efforts. Jumped on that one. It's tough to get an applause here in Philadelphia, especially when you're wearing a Brewers uniform. 0-2 pitch, and he got him. Strikes out Arcia on the changeup, and the inning is over. 6 strikeouts for Aaron Nola. He is dialed in right now. The Brewers trying to outlast him. They're down 2-1. For the lone run on the board, a solo home run in the 2nd inning. And Augie, we are looking at a player arriving to the major leagues and putting his substantial tools on display on this road trip.
Yeah, here's the first start. Comes and makes a perfect throw to get Span out at second base. The home run tonight, hitting the ball the opposite way on the pitch away, and then getting a great break on the ball, going to the ball, knowing where he's at, makes a nice catch.
The kid with a great laugh, or the painful laugh, depending on what perspective you look at it. He was on an episode of Intentional Talk on MLB Network earlier this week. He has a great attitude, personality, fun guy to have around, and he's having a good run. Had a double yesterday in a start, and now a home run tonight, his 2nd as a big leaguer. So Garza back to work. The Brewers are down 2-1. Hernandez drops a bunt down. Pena's got it, and Pena will throw him out. Now, you know what Hernandez was trying to do there, Augie? He was trying to put Matt Garza in the wheel, but did not get it out far enough from home plate.
Yeah, Manny Pena right on top of that ball, busting right out, getting it. Fell a little bit, but gets up and makes a nice planet. And they are going to test Matt Garza, but Manny was right there, gets up, makes a good strong throw to get Herrera out.
Pena has such a strong throwing arm. He's already cut down a runner trying to steal tonight. That was Nick Williams back in the 3rd inning. One away. Here is Freddie Galvis. Hit the 2-run home run off Garza in the 1st inning.
Excuse me, that was not Herrera, that was Hernandez. That might be that ball.
That's okay, Jerry.
Uh-huh.
You're allowed a mistake. That's your first one of the week.
I wish.
Oh, and 2 the count to Galvis. Galvis came inches on the bat from a grand slam in the second inning. That would have completely changed the game. It would have been 6-1, but he just got out ahead of it. Pulled it foul. That's a swing and a foul tip right into the mid of Pena. A strikeout for Matt Garza. Now he's got the hook going. Hey, a reminder, you can get live broadcasts, scoring updates, breaking news, and more right at your fingertips with MLB.com At Bat, the official app of the Milwaukee Brewers. Download the At Bat app today, free for your smartphone or your tablet.
You know, we talked about Aaron Nola, how he's been able to start to expand the strike zone. Matt Garza has started to do the same, just because he's starting to command the strike zone, get ahead of hitters. That time to Freddie Galvis actually only threw 1 strike, but expanding the strike zone got him to swing at a pitch down in the dirt.
Now Garza coming off a 10-pitch inning last inning in the 4th with a very high pitch count through the first 3 innings. And Williams gets sawed off, a foul ball. He's got him chasing now a little bit, huh, Jerry?
He's locating it, and you know, that's sometimes he's had that at the beginning of some ball games where he just doesn't have that good feel for the breaking ball or the fastball. He's got to work into it, and as he goes along, he starts getting that good feel. He's locating the ball much better, lower pitch counts, and getting ahead of hitters and expanding the strike zone.
No balls, 2 strikes. Fouls another one off. Just pouring them in.
Yeah, you see this inning, 77 pitches, 7 strikes, and different style pitches. Not just a fastball. It's been a breaking ball, cutter. When you throw the ball, you command that strike zone. You get away with those pitches. You expand that strike zone.
Nick Williams has been a hot bat for the Phillies. And a little half swing. Did he go? Yes, he did. Pena's got to secure it at first. No problem. And the inning is over as Matt Garza, a 1-2-3 fifth. He is dialed in now. All strikes in the inning from Garza.
Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park, the Brewers trail 2-1 as we head to the 6th. And Beyond the Diamond is a series of community outreach events that will take place each month during the season, all of which involve partnering with BCF, players, coaches, Brewers' wives, alumni, and team personnel working in the community. The community events will be funded in part by BCF and focused on the areas of health, education, recreation, and basic needs.
All right, Sophia, thanks. Here we go to the Brewer half of the 6th inning. And Matt Garza and Aaron Nola are dialed in right now. Garza just coming off a 3-up, 3-down fifth. He threw 8 pitches, all strikes. Keon Broxton will pinch hit for Garza. So Matt comes to the end of the line after 5. The Brewers needing some offense. And Broxton will get the at-bat to start it. And a swing and a miss. It'll be Broxton, then VR and Thames. Lone run for the Brewers came in the 2nd inning on a home run by Brett Phillips. And a fastball right by Keon Broxton for out number 1. Boy, the strikeouts, Augie, are coming quickly now.
He's really commanding that strike zone. You look at what he's done here. He's retired 9 in a row right now and throwing the ball very well.
7 strikeouts. So 1 away, top of the order now. Here comes VR. Jonathan tonight has walked and bounced into a double play as he takes a strike. Brewers are going to have to find a way to break the rhythm of Aaron Nola because he is pitching free and easy. A swing and a miss. Quickly 0-2. Think about this, Augie. Nola has only had to face 1 batter from the stretch since the 1st inning. And tonight he's only faced 3 batters from the stretch all night. Gave up a leadoff walk in the 1st. He was pitching out of the stretch against Thames and Santana. And then he pitched out of the stretch just for the 1 batter, VR, in the 3rd inning, got a double play ball.
Yeah, he's been throwing the ball very well. You look at guys who have that kind of success, don't walk people. He walked the leadoff hitter of the game, and that's been it.
And VR is tied up. Another strikeout. Nola with number 8. Well, his career high for strikeouts is 9. He's 1 away from that. And Jerry, he's using everything in his arsenal to get the strikeouts now.
You know, they talk so much about way he's changed and what he's done, but you know, 11 out of the 12 pitches have been strikes so far. And when you look at his balance, he throws just about that sinker, his 4-seam fastball, curveball, and changeup. When you look at the balance he has in the game, it's pretty even. When you can get all pitches over the plate, you can be successful. Tonight, he has great command.
Eric Thames up there with 2 outs into center field. That's going to get down, a base hit. Eric Thames breaks the trend here for Nola. And a clean single to center field. Eric Thames is on for the 2nd time.
Here we see that fastball tailing away inside part of the plate, and Eric Thames goes out, puts a good swing on it, drives it into right center for the base hit.
Well, the Brewers needed that one.
You know, one thing we've seen out of Eric Thames, especially in the last couple weeks, is really discipline, getting back to that discipline at the plate, that getting pitches in the strike zone, putting good swings on the ball.
Now Domingo Santana with Thames at first. That base hit snaps a string of 10 in a row retired by Nola. It's the first hit for the Brewers since Phillips went deep in the 2nd. I beg your pardon, since Garza's single in the 3rd was the last hit. That's a base hit through. And another hit for Milwaukee. Back-to-back singles with 2 outs. Thames and Santana. Now the Brewers in business with Travis Shaw coming up.
Pitch out over the plate there. Domingo goes out and gets it. Right here we see the pitch, a breaking ball. Out over the plate, goes out, hits it back up the middle. That's that ability to think back up the middle, what has been the success for Domingo Santana.
Santana with 2 hits tonight. Brewers now with 5 hits in the game. And here comes Travis Shaw. Travis Shaw has put up some gaudy numbers. Shaw was up with runners at 1st and 2nd in the 1st inning, bounced into an inning-ending double play. And a chance to drive in a run here. Powerball home run leaderboard. Shaw with 21. Thames still sets the pace with 23. Santana hit number 16 in Pittsburgh the other night. Thames and Santana, the base runners for Shaw, who swings and fouls it away. He was late. All that movement, and Nola has the Brewers chasing now.
Expanding the strike zone. That's where the success comes from. Once you command that strike, those pitches on all levels in the strike zone, you can start expanding. That's one thing Aaron Nola has done, especially the last several innings, is really expand the strike zone.
Shaw in Pittsburgh in game 2 of that series hit a 3-run home run. Gave the Brewers a 3-0 lead at the time. He'd love to see another one fly out of here. Nola misses up and in. 2 balls and a strike on Shaw.
I think one thing Nola was trying to do there is have a little effect. He threw a little 4-seam fastball, not with a lot of movement, inside part of plate, just to keep Travis Shaw a little honest.
Shaw is very good about going to the opposite field. And the 2-1. Shaw tries to pull that one, and he pulls it on the ground for the 3rd out of the inning. Nola continues to pitch well. He ran into a little trouble with 2 outs, back-to-back hits, but the Brewers strand 2. And here we go to the bottom of the 6th inning. The parrot on the arm of Edwin Encarnacion. That's a great pickup for the Indians, and he will certainly be a big part of their ball club in a pennant race, as he has proven throughout the years with the Blue Jays. A lot of baseball going on tonight. The Cubs lost to the Cardinals in a matinee. Cardinals scored 9 runs in the 8th inning today against Chicago. So the Brewers are trying to add a game to their lead. Carlos Torres is on to pitch for Milwaukee, and he is greeted rudely by Maikel Franco.
Yeah, Carlos is making his 47th appearance. Last pitched on Tuesday in Pittsburgh. 2 scoreless innings. In the last 10 appearances, he has a 1.32 ERA.
Torres facing Franco, Nava, and Joseph. He's right in the heart of the Phillies order. And Franco with his first hit. Talking about those consecutive years of 20 or more home runs, you can't think about that unless you think about Hank Aaron and what he did. 20 consecutive years of hitting at least 20 home runs.
Just amazing. It's such an honor. I had to pitch the last game. He hit number 755.
Wait a minute. I knew you were there. You didn't give up 755, did you?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
That was by Dick
Wait
Drago.
a minute. I thought you were saying that.
No,
Okay.
I pitched the game. We had I guess it might have even been a quality start, PA.
6 innings, 3 runs?
Yeah, I think it was. I'm not sure. I have to go back and look, but he hit it off of Dick Drago in Milwaukee.
There's still a plaque down on the asphalt in the parking lot where that final home run was hit, number 755. So you started the game.
Yes, I did. Got the win, I believe. I'm going to go back and look. I'll have to check tonight. That's hard for me to find those things. I'm not too good on a computer, so I'll research it tonight.
I thought I had slipped into some kind of trance there a minute when you said you had given up the last homer. I was like, wait, who were you pitching for, Augie?
No, I was there.
Swing and a miss by Nava.
You know, it's such
maybe an inter-squad game or something.
Yeah, spring training. But, you know, it's such an honor. When I got called up in 1975, I walked in the clubhouse and I looked up and there it was, Henry Aaron's locker.
Yeah.
I think I stood there for about 15 minutes and they tapped me on the shoulder and said I could you can now go to your locker.
You can now, where was Hank Aaron's locker situated? Was it in a prime spot?
No,
not a hidden spot?
It was right in with everybody else, but it was right when you walked in the door.
Nava lines one into left field. That's going to get down a base hit. Perez will cut it off. The throw goes to third. An ill-advised throw will let Nava advance. And now second and third, nobody out to start the inning. Well, Perez has got to get that throw to second base. No chance he's going to get Franco at third.
Here we see a pitch on the outer half. Danny Anoy puts a good swing on it, and that is a play. Those are the little things in the game of baseball that can make a difference, especially late in the ball game. And Hernan Perez probably reviewed it and says, you know what, I should have gone to second base. Holding that runner on first base is huge.
Well, now Torres in trouble, coming in for Garza, who lasted 5 innings. Garza settled down, pitched well. Matter of fact, his last 2 innings were 3 up, 3 down innings, and only threw 18 pitches in those 2 innings. But now Torres in a jam, facing Tommy Joseph. By the way, we have people to fact check your memory, and the game in which Henry Aaron hit his final home run, number 755, was July 20, 1976. And Augie, you went 7 innings. There's a line drive deep into center field, way back and off the wall. This is going to get 2 runs home as Tommy Joseph delivers a pair on a booming double to center field. And now the Phillies are up 4-1. Carlos Torres not fooling anyone here in the 6th inning. 3 sharply hit balls.
Making mistakes down the middle of the plate. It's not quite having that good command on the corners. When you come in the ball game, you have to really dominate the outside or inside part of the plate. And tonight, Carlos is really struggling with that command.
A quick strike for the Phillies. They got 2 in the first, now 2 here in the 6th. Torres has yet to record an out, and the Brewers, who have lost 5 consecutive games, find themselves down big in this 6th inning in Philadelphia. Phillies have really been swinging the bats well. I mean, they're scoring a ton of runs here lately. All started with their 5-run game last Sunday against the Brewers. They just took a series from the Marlins, beat the Marlins 10-3 on Wednesday. Scored 20 runs in 3 games in the Marlins series. Four on the board in the 6th inning as Torres misses inside.
Yeah, you talk about teams that has been swinging the bat very well since the All-Star break. As a team, they're hitting .294, which is 6th best in the major leagues.
The Phillies have 6 hits tonight, 3 in a row here in the 6th inning. And a 4-1 lead as Torres deals. Herrera fouls it away. 1 ball and 1 strike on the Phillies center fielder. Yeah, that game that Hank Aaron homered, you went 7 innings and 1 earned run.
Wow.
Got the win. Frisella the same.
That'll be one way I get to the Hall of Fame right there, because it's probably listed.
Gotta be.
That was quite an honor just to be a teammate of Hank Aaron. That was the biggest honor of them all.
1-1 pitch. Bouncing ball foul. So on Hank Aaron's locker, did it say Hank Aaron or Henry Aaron?
Just Aaron.
Just Aaron. Just the last name.
Yeah, it was right as you came in the clubhouse, right to your right. You walk in, and we had a line, and it was right off to your right as you walked. It was a small clubhouse. So he was about the 3rd or 4th locker, and I believe he was right next to Don Money, if I recall.
All those years of hitting at least 20 homers. There's a liner in the right, another base hit. 4 consecutive hits for the Phillies. And they have him at the corners now. 2 runs are in, nobody out with runners at 1st and 3rd. And Torres is having all kind of trouble. And Jerry, he continues to look at the baseball. I don't know if he's feeling like these baseballs are different, but he keeps looking at them.
I know, it's kind of unusual when you usually you go to you find the baseballs, they're all rubbed down pretty much the same, but sometimes they have a little bit funny feel to them, and it just seems like Carlos is a little bit uncomfortable out there with the baseball.
Well, he's given up 4 straight hits. He's got to find something quickly here, with the Phillies scoring twice and runners at the corners. Andrew Knapp takes ball 1. Phillies against Matt Garza went 3 for 17. 4 for 4 against Torres. And he misfires. 2-0 the count. Torres is throwing as hard as he has all year right now, but he's having a hard time finding the strike zone.
That's just it. You fall behind, and then you try to make too good of a pitch, and then you make the mistake over the middle plate, and these Phillies are taking advantage of it.
2-0 the count. Misses again. 3-0. Well, you can't afford to let it ride with Torres much longer. You got Rob Scahill in the bullpen, and I'm sure Torres, if he does not retire Knapp, is going to be out. It is not his night tonight. 2 runs are in. 3-0 pitch. He is low and in. Ball 4. 5 consecutive base runners. And now the bases are loaded with nobody out, and Craig Counsell has a tough decision to make here. Now he's got the pitcher coming up. That might buy Torres another batter. I think it will. Counsell's going to send Pena to the mound, give him a little extra think time.
A lot of times in these situations, you just giving Scahill just a little extra time to warm up. So let's see if he makes a decision to bring him in.
If it wasn't a command issue, you'd feel fine with Torres pitching to Nola. Might even give him a chance to get a double play or get out of this inning. But the fact that he's fallen behind and he just walked the 8th place hitter on 4 pitches gives you some thought. He's going to let him go, though, and he deals strike 1. Torres needs Nola to hit a ground ball in a bad way. The Brewers bring their infield in. They can ill afford to give up any more, so they'll try to cut the run off at the plate. Swing and a miss. 1-2 the count. Nola has 1 career hit and 1 career RBI. A successful sacrifice bunt in the second inning. Had a strikeout his next time up. And down he goes. Torres strikes out Nola. First out of the inning. And now back to the top of the order. And does Craig Counsell make a change? You know, you're just a double play ball away from getting out of this, and 4-1 is not out of reach. Priority is to get out of this inning, and then priority for the offense is to somehow get Nola out of the game. He's been tough on him today. Bases loaded, 1 out. Here is Hernandez.
You know, we see the velocity of Torres up from where it was in the beginning of the season. It just seemed today like he's just overthrowing just a little bit. Can't locate the ball. A lot of the pitches that he's throwing this inning have been up in the zone. And get the ball behind, you get up in the zone over the middle plate. Guys can put a good swing on it, so it'll be interesting to see if he can get that ball down, make that good pitch down in the zone, and get a ground ball.
Well, Hernandez did hit a ground ball with the bases loaded his last time. He came up with the bases loaded. That was in the second. That helped Garza get out of a mess. 2-0 the count on Hernandez. He's walked and scored. 0 for 2. And a 2-0 is hoisted foul and out of play.
Good fastball there on the inner half of the plate. Best way to get a ground ball is something down in the zone. Breaking ball, sinking fastball, changeup.
See what he has in mind here. Torres facing Hernandez. Bases full of Phillies, and a cutter got in under his hands. A swing and a miss.
That's his signature pitch. When he's got that going, he's pretty good. And put that right in a real good location. Yeah. Here we see the pitch right on the inside, a little cutter right there, 93 miles an hour. That's his signature pitch. When he can locate that, he's tough.
That's big velocity for a cut fastball. Reach back for a little extra. 2-2, misses inside. And now the count is full. Nowhere to put him. Torres has to bring a strike. 1 out in the inning. First 5 batters reach base against Torres. 2 runs are in. And a 3-2 pitch is swung on, line, foul.
Right there, he threw him a good fastball down in the zone, semi down in the zone, but right over the middle of the plate. And Hernandez was able to put a good swing on it.
Do it again, another 3-2 offering. Yeah, he might have chased ball 4. That was close. 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Hernandez still alive. Hernandez, a chance to bust the game open right here. Torres is hoping for either a strikeout or a ground ball. Notice the Brewers have backed up their middle infielders. I think they're going to take a shot to turn 2 up the middle now. And Pena's on his way to the mound.
I think they're just out there talking about what he wants to do in his pitch. He's got that good breaking ball on the inside part of the plate. But really, you have to do something where you throw a strike. That breaking ball is a good pitch. A lot of times throwing just off the plate. Will Hernandez go for it? But what he's trying to get him to do is throw that good sinking fastball, a good fastball on the outer half.
Hernandez has a lot of speed, and it's ball 4. 5-1. Phillies have scored 3 in the inning on 4 hits and 2 walks. Bases loaded walk given up by Carlos Torres, and Craig Counsell is finally on his way out. Well, this one has turned ugly quickly. Still only 1 out.
3 runs are in, and Rob Scahill will be next up. Pitching change in Philadelphia. Torres will exit, having given up 3 thus far. Baseball on Fox Sports Wisconsin is brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer. Friday night, Philadelphia, and things have turned ugly for the Brewers here. The Phillies have scored 3 runs, still only 1 man out, and the bases are still loaded. It's 5-1 Philadelphia, and Augie, the new pitcher, is Rob Scahill, trying to put the lid on the jar.
Yeah, Scahill's making his 18th appearance. He's 1-3 with a 4.79 ERA. But he did come in the game in Monday, and remember he struck out David Freese with the bases loaded. So hopefully we can have something good happen here tonight.
Well, Scahill is going to have to face Freddie Galvis, who hit a 2-run home run off Matt Garza in the first inning. Bases loaded. The Brewers are going to make a play for a double play in the middle infield, and a ground ball right to Thames. That is a foul ball. Well, it's a kind of ballpark that you can score a lot of runs in a hurry. Citizens Bank Park, very hitter friendly, especially on a night like this, on a warm night when the ball is traveling well. And the way the Brewers have been able to score runs for the most part this year, not insurmountable, but you got to stop the bleeding right now if you're Rob Scahill somehow. There's a shot foul, and it's quickly 0-2 on Galvis. Aaron Nola has been terrific for the Phillies on the mound tonight. Brewers did get a couple of hits with 2 outs last inning, but stranded them both. Nola retired Travis Shaw on a ground ball. 0-2 the count. In the air, left field, shallow. Perez has a great arm. Catch is made. Herrera's coming home, and he's in there. It's a good throw by Perez, but too fast. And it's 6-1 Philadelphia.
He gets a fastball on the outside part, puts a good swing, drives it deep enough. Perez comes up, makes a good throw, just a little bit late.
Did all he could. Strong arm, good throw, 1 hop. Herrera just runs too well. And the 4th run of the inning is in. 6-1 Philadelphia. 2 outs now. And it'll be the 9th batter of the inning, Nick Williams. It's the 3rd RBI of the night for Freddie Galvis. He's got 30 Check it, 41 RBIs now for the year with his 3 ribbies tonight. 2 on, 2 out. Yeah, good sink action by Scahill that time on a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. We're seeing big velocity readings tonight. Call it the Philadelphia radar gun, or on a hot night easy to get loose. Everybody's up a mile per hour or 2 tonight, including Matt Garza, who was hitting 94
awfully warm tonight. I don't know if it's just the heat or whatever, but there is a little bit more velocity with each pitcher.
0-1 pitch on the ground to second base. VR is there, and the inning is finally over, but it was a rough one for the Brew Crew. Carlos Torres struggles tonight. Phillies score 4, and they lead it 6-1. Hoping for a comeback tonight. Down 6-1. Hey, guarantee your seat for the Bucs' 50th anniversary return to the Mecca game this fall. The 43-game Super Pass is available. Visit foxsportswisconsin.com/upcoming events for details. Oh, I like that jersey. He's got the powder blue Brewers uniform on. She's got the Packers green and the Brewers hat. Let's hope the Brewers can give him something to smile about tonight.
On Wisconsin right there.
Hernan Perez will lead off for the Brew Crew, leading base runners now. Cam Perkins has taken over in left field for the Phillies as they tighten up their defensive unit. Nava is out of the game. Nava is out. Nola is still in, and he is pitching a gem tonight. Brewers aren't the only team he's having success against. This guy's been on a roll here lately. Last start against the Brewers, gave up just 2 earned runs in 6 innings. Went 8 innings and only 2 earned runs the start prior to that against San Diego. He'd come into this start tonight with an ERA of 1.78 in his last 5 starts. And that all-important whip stat, the walks and hits per innings pitched, under 1. There's a shattered bat. Galvis makes a play on Perez. But ahead of that bat, it went almost as far as the baseball.
Again, we're getting that 2-seam sinking fastball in on hitters. And when you do that, you get in the strike zone. Hitters are going to be going after it. And what happened right there, he got that fastball in inner half. Perez went to get it. The ground ball to short.
Nola's given up 5 hits. Last 3 starts for him. 2-2 and 0 on the earned run. So far tonight, he's only given up 1 earned run.
That was the Brett Phillips home run back in the second. Pena with a swing and a foul. Well, the Cubs lost today to the Cardinals, so the Brewers know they will remain in first place whatever happens here tonight. Trying to fight their way through their longest slump of the year. They have matched their longest losing streak of the season, 5 games. And of course, a loss tonight would be a new low for them on the season. But you're hoping a winning streak is right around the corner. You're hoping they can get the bats going here tonight. Still have time. Priority right now is to try to get Aaron Nola out of this game. He is cruising 84 pitches as he works here in the 7th inning.
Yeah, he's been very efficient tonight, getting ahead of hitters. Like we said, just 1 walk, and that was a leadoff hitter. And just continues to throw that sinking fastball, mixing the changeup, once in a while a breaking ball. He's been very effective.
Well, the Pirates, who just swept the Brewers in a 4-game series, are in Colorado tonight. Rockies lead that game 3-2. Cardinals beat the Cubs 11-4 earlier today. This will be a 3-game series with the Phillies, then a day off Monday, and then the road trip continues to Washington, D.C. and a date with the first place Nationals. That's a 3-game series starting next Tuesday. Inside almost hit Pena. 3-2 now. This was the one road trip you looked at, and this was where you were going to find out about your ball club. And right now the Brewers, although they played well in Pittsburgh, just haven't been able to scratch one on the win column. Pena draws a walk. A 1-out base runner here in the 7th inning.
Nice at bat after going 0-2. Worked a walk out of him, but yeah, you're right. You know, you come out of the All-Star break, you win 2 out of 3 against Philadelphia at home, going on a big 10-game road trip. You're going to find something about where's this ball club at, and right now the ball club is just struggling a little bit.
Well, Brett Phillips has homered tonight already. Love to see another one fly here. That would help get the Brewers back in this a little bit. And on his way to the mound is Andrew Knapp. Well, Phillips in the 2nd inning stepped up there with 2 outs, nobody on, when Oppo Taco, as they say, Jerry.
Got a ball on the outside part of the plate, put a good swing on it, going the opposite way. He's hit 2 home runs. Pulled 1 ball to right field on Sunday, or I believe it was, and then today comes up and hits the ball the opposite way.
And he got under this one. Fly ball into left field, routine for Perkins. His first chance, and there is out number 2. Nola's longest outing of the year has been 8 innings. He has done that twice. He's been very efficient tonight. Look at that. Only 90 pitches as we play with 2 outs in the 7th. Nola with 2 gone, runner at first, Arcia at the plate. And he misses with a breaking ball. He's had it all going tonight, Nola. He's had the good fastball. Haven't seen as many 4-seam fastballs as we saw him throw in that game in Milwaukee. Matter of fact, he gave up a home run on a 4-seam fastball to Hernan Perez. But why throw a 4-seamer, right, when you have all the sink that he has tonight? And he's throwing hard tonight.
You're exactly right. He's had great command of that 2-seam. He has thrown several 4-seamers up in the zone just for purpose, just to change the eye level. But he's got that sinking fastball, and along with that good changeup tonight, and then throwing in the breaking ball. been very effective.
Had a lower back strain earlier this year, had a couple of minor league games. And he's just starting to get better and better. Nola really finding himself as a major league pitcher. And I'm telling you, the shape of these pitches is right out of the Roy Halladay playbook. That slinging mid-90s fastball that he's working on the outside corner to right-handed batters. He's got that little slurvy curve that you're talking about, and the changeup.
Well, it's the effectiveness. You get ahead with those pitches, then you can start expanding the strike zone.
Just missed with that one. He's been good on that outside corner today.
Yes, he is, and he's just missing now. He's been expanding it, and players have been swinging. RC has really been patient at the plate, giving it a good look out there. He's had first pitch he threw down and in for a strike, and then it's gone on the outside part plate, just off that outside part of plate, trying to coax him to swing.
He's got 3 out there. Let's see if he tries again. 3 balls and a strike. Runner at first. And Nola delivers and a swing and a foul. Nola was a first rounder by the Phillies. That was back in 2014. They had the 7th overall pick that year, and they drafted Nola out of LSU. He is quickly emerging as a potential ace of this Phillies pitching staff.
I believe he was a college pitcher of the year in 2014 at LSU.
Sure was. Runner goes, and a swing and a miss. Nola strikes out Arcia. That is number 8.
Phillies have a 6-1 lead here in the 7th, and all signs point to you coming to Miller Park on Sunday, August 13th for the Bob Uecker 8-ball, which will be given to all fans in attendance for the Crews matchup with the Cincinnati Reds, courtesy of 620 WTMJ. You can reserve your spot today at brewers.com. Another great giveaway for all the fans this season. That one will be a lot of fun. We've had some fun already testing out the Uecker 8-ball, guys.
I've got some questions for that 8-ball right now, Sophia, as a matter of fact. It's a lot of questions to be had. By the way, Sophia, bring her back in here. The update on Ryan Braun, who is out with a wrist injury, missing his 3rd consecutive game. The Brewers have a little bit of roster shuffling to do, right? Sogard is expected back tomorrow, correct?
Yeah, so Ryan Braun missing his 3rd straight game, still dealing with that sore wrist. Craig Counsell saying he wanted to be in that lineup today, but they felt it was best just to be cautious with him, give him an extra day, and try to get him back to as close to 100%. The idea being that he can then play full games for is able to do the first 5 games coming out break. And for Eric Sogard, he is back with the team along with Willie Peralta. Craig Counsell saying Sogard will be activated tomorrow and Willie Peralta likely at some point over this weekend.
Well, you got to figure Willie Peralta. Thank you, Sophia. Got to figure Willie Peralta. I mean, Augie, this is probably it for him. This is his moment
he's either going to remain a Brewer in the big leagues or he's going to be moving on if he does not have success when he is finally activated. And I know he knows that. I think he probably feels like maybe he's gotten an extra chance that he wasn't expecting. But here he is. He was pitching well in a couple of outings in the minor leagues, and we'll see what he can do. Brewers are going to have to make a fast decision on Willie Peralta.
Yeah, he's just a very tough guy to figure out. I think if you remember early in the season, he pitched a game up in Toronto. And I remember after game, I looked at a couple guys and said, now that was #1 stuff. He threw the ball that well, commanding the strike zone, had all his pitches. And he said he went back and did some changing with his delivery. He has a tendency to fall off the mound a little bit. His arm gets away from him, and I think that has a little bit to do with his command. They said he corrected it. We'll have to wait and see.
Michael Franco bounces one to short. The shift was on. Arcia playing in the hole will make the play for the out. Augie is an expert on Willie Peralta about as much as anybody could be. You've been watching him pitch since he was
back in A-ball,
18 years old. And
yes.
What have you seen from him over the years, and what do you think about Willie Peralta right now and the potential that this may be it for him this time around?
I still think he's got all the. You look at it, the stuff that he has quality stuff to be a starter or a reliever in the big leagues. I think he can help this ball club right now huge in the big leagues, but it's just about command. And I think if there's anything I've watched through his career, even the season that he had the 17 wins, was that commanding the fastball, getting ahead of hitters was always an issue. He'd go deep into games and was the benefit of some runs being scored for him, but it was commanding that fastball. He's got a great breaking ball, and he can get that over, but he can't command the fastball consistently to both sides of the plate, and I really believe that's what he has to do.
Well, there's nobody who wants to do it more than Willie Peralta. He knows what's on the line here, and I mean, you're talking about your family, the financial well-being. There's a lot of pressure on a guy like Willie Peralta, who at one point was considered the Brewers' ace. He was the opening day starter 2 years ago. He is as fun-loving of a guy as you could imagine. He's a great guy to be around. Everybody is rooting for him. They want him to succeed because he's such a great guy. Always quick with a compliment, always smiling. But just some mechanical problems for Willie Peralta. I guess, you know, as he's aged, as his body has changed a little bit. You noticed something today for Willie Peralta, who's been, by the way, working out with the relievers.
That's right.
So he's obviously going to come back as a reliever at this point.
Getting over the top more, not letting the arm get away from his body. And that, what I mean by that, when you go to the plate, your body has a tendency to fall towards the first base side, and your arm gets away from your body a little bit. And that's some of the issues that he's had. But he's got all the stuff. We talk about Aaron Nola with that heavy sinker he's got. Really has that type of sinker, and if he can only just command it, get ahead of hitters, and then work the breaking ball in there, he'd be very effective, and he could really help this ball club.
Well, Scahill battling Cam Perkins here, batting for the first time. By the way, Peralta pitched 2 innings yesterday, so there's a pretty good bet that he will not be activated until Sunday. He wouldn't be available to pitch until Sunday. There'd be no reason to activate Willie. Have to make a corresponding move at that point. That's a call. It's strike 3. Perkins is out. Scahill picks up his first strikeout.
Nice pitch on the outside part of the plate there. That's that sinking fastball, that movement with fastball to get to strike him out right there.
Hey, tonight's tavern of the game winner is River Run Tavern in Bay City. If the tavern calls the Milwaukee Brewers by 8 a.m. tomorrow at 414-902-4572, they will receive 40 tickets to a Friday night game in the Miller Lite Beer Pen. This offer is courtesy of the Tavern League of Wisconsin and Miller Lite. Say hey to all of our friends at the River Run Tavern in Bay City. Hope you got your rally caps on tonight. Brewers are down 6-1 as we go to the 8th. The last call for the Brewers would be the last 6 outs. They will be heading back to the top of their order. It'll be 9-1-2 coming up in the 8th. Scahill trying to get Joseph, who drove in a pair with a double last inning. Scahill's done a pretty good job here. He entered the game with 1 out and the bases loaded. Got a sac fly from Galvis and then 2 ground outs and a strikeout to somewhat minimize the damage.
Commanding the strike zone, down in the zone. You know, it's one thing when you come in as a bullpen, it's so important. There's 2 things that you want to do as a when you come out of that bullpen, and that's that first hitter face. Get that guy out. That's so important. And really, the Brewers bullpen has done an excellent job. And the second thing is inherited runners. Make those pitches, get down, get ahead of hitters, and stay away from walks. Anytime you come in, especially after that 6th inning walk, people, it always seems to come back and haunt you.
There's a shot right to Shaw. Out number 3, a bullet off the bat of Tommy Joseph right into the glove of Shaw. And a 1-2-3 inning for Scahill. We go to the 8th. Brewers down 5. Time with the great TV director Bill Webb. We used to see him every year at the seminar, and of course he did the Mets for a long time aside from his national work with Fox. The king of the split screen. You know, all those images over the years you're watching Fox Baseball World Series and you're seeing the facial expressions in those tense moments. That was Bill Webb directing those cameras. And he lost his battle with cancer. That's a nice event. Nice opportunity for the Mets to host a night in Bill Webb's honor. Good stuff. Pat Neshek is on the mound for the Phillies.
Pat making his 42nd appearance. He's 3-2 with a 1.17 ERA. He's a ground ball specialist and a setup man.
There's a Bill Webb split screen for you. Our director, Adam Bryant III, with his own tribute to Bill Webb. He basically invented that shot you just saw.
That's neat.
With the pitcher on one side, the hitter on the other. And I tell you, in some of those great World Series moments when it was coming down to that last moment, there was nothing better than to see both of those individuals and what they were experiencing.
The emotions that go with that. You see what they're going through. It's really neat to see.
I appreciate the work of our terrific crew here in Philadelphia tonight. Always a top-notch TV crew. A swing and a miss. Aguilar strikes out. Brewers are punching out often here tonight. Nola struck out 8 in his 7 innings. And a strikeout for Neshek to start his outing. Neshek was born in Madison, Wisconsin. Played his college ball at Butler in Indianapolis and went to high school in Minnesota, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. And it doesn't figure that he's going to be a Philly very long. He is a hot name in the trade circles. Has a stellar earned run average. He's only given up 5 earned runs all year. 38 and now 2/3 innings. VR lines one left field line. That's down. It's to the wall. VR on his way to second base. It'll be a 1-out double. And finally, the Brewers put a man in scoring position. First time since the 6th inning. And only the second time since the 2nd.
Nice approach here by Jonathan VR. That riding fastball out away from him. Takes it to left field. Puts a good swing on it for a double.
Well, leadoff double, a 1-out double for the Brewers by the leadoff hitter. And here comes Eric Dames. Brewers have had some big innings this year. Chopper to first. Joseph will take it to the bag for out number 2.
You know what's interesting, BA, is that Nishak, we actually played against him when I was at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. He was at Butler and used to throw the ball a little upper 3/4 and made himself into dropping down and really made him effective. He also threw the ball hard. He had a very good fastball, good breaking ball, but all of a sudden he just lowered that arm and it's really made him a different pitcher. Has kept in the big leagues for a long time.
He's 36 years of age, facing Domingo Santana here with 2 outs. He is an all-star as well. Twice he's made all-star teams. The most memorable of which was in 2014 pitching for the Cardinals when he was able to be on an all-star team in an all-star game played at Target Field in Minneapolis for a Minnesota kid. Made the all-star team this year, was the Phillies representative. A strikeout to walk ratio over 8-1 this season. And his days are numbered here in Philadelphia. He's pitched for a lot of teams, and he has a lot of postseason experience as well. Twins, A's, Cardinals. Pitched in the postseason 2 years ago with the Astros.
And he likes a lot of work. He likes to work a lot. The more he works, the ball sinks a little bit more from the delivery he's got. This guy's going to go right after hitters, doesn't walk a lot of guys. Big important part of a bullpen.
1-2 pitch is fouled away. Now every contending team feels the same as the Brewers, and he'd look pretty good in your bullpen right now. There are going to be a lot of moving parts here in the next couple of weeks. There already are moving parts. And plenty more to come as we approach the trade deadline. Nishak just missed. 2-2 on Santana. Domingo's been one of the few bright spots offensively tonight. He and Brett Phillips. Santana with 2 hits, both coming off Aaron Nola, who didn't allow much, only 1 run across 7 innings and 8 strikeouts. Got him this time. Nishak remains stellar, and that 1.17 ERA is going south. 6-1 Phillies. Need Jeff on nights like this.
That was
well
brilliant.
done, Grayson. Jesus Aguilar will stay in the game. He'll play first base. That'll bump Thames out to left field, which will move Perez over to right field. And Augie, the new pitcher, is Josh Hader, who continues to be a big story from the Brewers minor league system, part of this rebuild. Hader will get the ball. He is hardly giving up anything right now in the big leagues as a reliever.
Yeah, he's making his 11th appearance. He's 1-1 with a 1.29 and did pitch on Monday. Ended up giving a run and took the loss, but he's been throwing the ball very well.
He will face Odubel Herrera to start the inning. Phillies have a 6-1 lead. They scored 4 runs in the 6th. And now the Brewers in trouble, in danger of losing their 6th consecutive game, which would be the longest losing streak of the year. Just got to hang in there, folks. These losing streaks happen. You'd rather not go 5 and 6 games, and there's still time for the Brewers to come back. But that's the way it goes. In a pennant race, wild swings, they'll get hot again. Best part about all of this is the Brewers played so well going into the All-Star break. They built up a 5.5 game lead. And you have other teams that are just as hungry. The Cubs, the reigning World Series champs, they have been underachieving this year. They lost today, by the way, if you're just joining us and haven't been following baseball throughout this Friday. Cubs lost to the Cardinals. St. Louis scored 9 runs in the 8th inning and came back to beat the Cubs today. Pirates are in Colorado tonight. We'll be tracking that game as long as we're on the air here. Grayson will have an update for you before he leaves the air for Brewers Live. Pirates have taken the lead in Colorado 5-3. That game's in the 3rd inning. That's going to be a wild night in Colorado, I can tell you already. There's already 11 hits in that game, and they're only in the 3rd. In the top of the 3rd. A swing and a miss. Hader strikes out Herrera. Out number 1 in the 8th. Miller Lite, what's on tap? We'll do it again tomorrow night. Matt LePay will be joining Jerry Augustine, the great voice. Will join Augie, and that'll be Brent Suter against Jeremy Hellickson. Miller Lite, what's on tap? Tomorrow, 5:30 on Fox Sports Wisconsin with LePay and Augie and Sophia Minard reporting.
Brent Suter been throwing the ball very well this year as a starter, his last 4 starts.
He is fun to watch. He is a joy. Brent Suter works fast, pitches below bat speed, as they say. Pena took a shot on a foul ball.
You know, it's just been a combination with him. He's a very quick worker, first of all. But I'll tell you what, when he first came up last year, tried to dominate the inside part of play and didn't have a lot of success. But I'll tell you what, since he's been a starter this year, he's really had that ability to dominate that outside part of play with all his pitches. He's got a good fastball. He's been using that little 2-seamer and breaking ball and changeup. It's been very effective.
Pena still a little shaken up behind the plate. Now athletic trainer Dave Yeager is on his way out. It's a hot night in Philadelphia. And Pena gets dinged on this foul ball by Knapp right between the eyes. Ouch.
Right at the top of the mask.
Brewers have already lost one of their catchers on this road trip. Stephen Vogt was injured on Monday in Pittsburgh. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a sprained MCL in his knee, left knee. Pena's going to be all right. He'll stay in. Pena and Jet Bandy make up the catching core right now. I would imagine you'd see Jet in there tomorrow. Certainly would catch the day game on Sunday if not. Herrera made the first out with a strikeout. Hader with his first punch out facing Andrew Knapp. And that one misses.
You know, each time you can see Josh Hader get in the ball game, it's just so valuable for him. And you know, in talking with him, he says he doesn't make any difference whether he's a starter or reliever. He just wants to help the ball club. But really, it's about learning that command and how to pitch in relief. Because when you come in, you got to dominate that strike zone. He's got the great staff, great pitches. He's got a good fastball, throws a little bit of a slider, worked on his changeup, but commanding the strike zone is so important.
Well, Hader figures to be a starter at some point, was a starter in the minor leagues. He has been an impact left-hander, though, in the bullpen for the Brewers this year. And you figure he'll have a chance to make a run at the starting rotation next season. 2-2 the count, and that's in there. Called strike three. Hader with back-to-back Ks to start the 8th inning.
He's got that arm angle. What he does, he comes away from the left, from facing the plate to the left side of the mound. So when that ball comes, you see it coming away from. You see the high fastball for a ball. Then he'll come back with a fastball on the outside corner. Just trying to dominate the outside part of the plate. Throws the fastball again, throwing a 96, elevating a little bit. Comes back with a strike on the outside corner for strike three, 97 miles an hour.
Here's Howie Kendrick now. Kendrick just arrived back to the ball club. He's been on the 10-day disabled list with a left hamstring injury. First day back. Former Angel, former Dodger. Kendrick's had a tough year on the injury front. Had a right abdominal strain earlier in the season. He missed 6 weeks. There's a shot back up the middle. And a base hit. Kendrick with a single. In his first at bat back from the DL, Hader gives up his first hit allowed. And Kendrick is aboard. Back to the top of the order go the Phils. So Cesar Hernandez, the switch hitting second baseman, will turn around, hit right-handed against Hader. Phillies scored 2 in the first. 2-run home run by Galvis. Brewers got a home run by Brett Phillips in the second inning. And it remained 2-1 until the 6th inning. Garza was taken out after 5. Now a foul ball off the umpire's mask. Adrian Johnson says, "I'm all right." Knocked his throat protector off. Ooh, man.
Good fastball up in the zone.
A lot of destruction on that one.
Josh Hader has that side Madison Bumgarner style arm angle. Flight of the ball is just a little different.
Phillies riding that 4-run 6th inning, leading 6-1. As we play in the bottom of the 8th inning, Hader trying to get through this 8th, give the Brewers a chance in a 9th for one of those memorable comebacks, one of those signature comebacks. That's what it would be, down 5. Hader trying to keep it that way. Hernandez in a hitter's count. That's the thing about Hader right there. That pitch sums up everything he can be for the Brewers. Because you know Hernandez is selling out for a fastball, and he still put it by him.
He's got that arm angle. When you look at where it comes from, it comes out of side. And, you know, some of the guys are talking, is he a Madison Bumgarner? Is he a Chris Sale? He's kind of like right in between. See the arm angle from the side here? That ball's got some life on it. And you talk about cut life, where the ball takes off a little bit, and that's really effective. As he gains more control over it, has better command of it, he's going to be very good.
And swinging a foul back out of play.
Count stays 3-2. Command has always been the issue for Hader, but what makes him great is also what gets him in trouble. The wild mechanics. I mean, he is very unorthodox. He works hard to try to keep himself strong, to be able to repeat the mechanics of what is not your ordinary pitching style. Crossfire action. And that time he hit him. And that'll be a base runner. So suddenly a single and a hit by pitch. And it'll be 2 on with 2 outs.
That's what we just talked about. It's always that command. And when you get a young pitcher, especially Josh, who's been a starter in the minor leagues, and he comes up and he gives you that different zones, doesn't have that good command, he can get himself in trouble, just like you just said.
Meeting at the mound gives us a chance to tell you about our Badger Mutual Insurance play of the game. That would be the 2-run home run by Freddie Galvis. First inning. Put the Phillies on the board, and you're wondering if the Phillies are going to be able to keep up this offensive attack that we have seen from them the last 5 games. And the answer is a resounding yes. After a 2-run home run in the first inning by Galvis, before Garza had recorded an out. 6 more on the board tonight for the Phillies. 6 runs on 8 hits. That's 31 runs in the last 5 games for Philadelphia. And if my math is correct, Jerry, you're the insurance man, but that's more than 6 runs a game.
They've been swinging the bat, scoring runs, and you put runs on the board, your pitchers pitch well, you're going to win a lot of ball games.
Pop up foul territory. You are still in the insurance business, are you not?
Yes, I am. A lot of work. A lot of work.
A lot of thunderstorms recently.
It's part of the business, though. Helping people.
Is that your slogan?
Yes.
People helping people.
I always say we care about you.
Augie cares about you. I think you should go third person in that. Augie cares about you.
There you go.
I like that better.
I'm going to add that. I'm going to change it around.
Matter of fact, I would like to produce your next commercial, which would be your first commercial.
It would be. That'd be fun.
Hi, I'm Jerry Augustine. You might remember me from such moments as the final game that Hank Aaron hit a home run. I was the winning pitcher that day. And remember, Augie cares about you.
And if you want to hear more.
Galvis pops this one foul. Count remains at 1-2. Jeff, fun at the 1982 reunion last week?
It was awesome. I'll tell you what, everybody in the Brewer organization just did a great job, not only for the fans to see the 82 team and have some great memories, but for to be able to get together with former teammates just was very special.
1 ball, 2 strikes. One thing I saw you do, and it reminded me of what you did as a player, chewing gum and flipping the baseball with your hand. I mean, it's like you put that jersey on and you went right into your playing routine.
Had the gum,
all
got
those
a baseball.
habits came right back.
In fact, I carried a baseball to the mound and I threw it to Dwight Bernard, who was right after me. It was fun.
2-2 is fouled away. Hader cannot shake Freddie Galvis.
You know, it's so neat is all the guys came to town, and we're spread all over the United States, but to see the guys who still keep in touch and really enjoy watching the Brewers and where the Brewers are going and what they're doing this year, said David, the Brewer Ball Club has just been fun to watch. A lot of similarities to what we played back in '81 and '82.
They happen to say anything about the announcers at all? Because those guys carry a lot of weight with the owner.
Well, they enjoy the announcers.
Okay, good.
Because they listen to games.
Well, I appreciate that.
They listen to a lot of games. And,
I wasn't pining for a compliment there.
But they do listen.
That's nice to hear.
They ask me how well do I get along with those guys.
3-2 pitch, runners go, and Hader finally gets Freddie Galvis. Arcia is under it, and the side is retired. We go to the 9th. Is there a comeback in the Brewers tonight? They're down 5. Might as well get 6.
presented by Potawatomi Hotel and Casino. Friday night, Philadelphia. Brewers are down 6-1 and in danger of losing their 6th straight game. That means they are 1 game closer to a winning streak. That's the way we're going to look at it. Hector Neris is on the mound for the Phillies.
Hector Neris comes in the game and in making his 43rd appearance. He's 2-3 with a 3.29 ERA. He's got 9 saves, pitched 41 innings, has 44 strikeouts.
Neris in here to try to close it down. Phillies won 2 out of 3 from the Marlins. They won the final game against the Brewers in Milwaukee. So they've won 3 of 4. This is a team with the worst record in the majors. But starting to put together something here offensively, and they've got great pitching tonight from Aaron Nola, who went 7 innings and came a strikeout away from his career best. He struck out 8 today. Travis Shaw starts it, then Perez, then Pena. And there's a shot with the shift on right to the second baseman Hernandez out in the grass, and there is out number 1. If you're wondering, the Phillies have 3 losses when they have led going into the 9th inning. Brewers going to have to get going quickly. I beg your pardon on Nola. I said 8 strikeouts. He actually struck out 9. He matched a career high tonight. My counter was off by 1. 7 innings, 9 strikeouts for Nola. One of his best games in the big leagues. Only gave up the 1 run, which was the Brett Phillips homer.
Tonight pitching, it's Aaron Nola gave 6 consecutive quality starts, so he's been really throwing the ball well for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Perez in a 2-0 count on Neris. In the air, left center. That ball is hit well, way back into left center. The center fielder Herrera is going to run it down. Hit it to the deep gap in left center. Perez flipped the bat. He thought he might have gotten it there, but it was just drifting into the deeper reaches. If he pulls it a hair, it's going to be long gone. Long loud out for Hernan Perez.
And you see a ball on the inner half of the plate. Hernan puts a good swing on it, but you hit the ball in the left center, right center, and center field. You've got to drive it pretty good to get it out of here. Ball was just short.
Brewers down to their last out. Manny Pena. Well, we'll wind it up and do it again tomorrow. Brewers, Phillies, game 2 of this series. And hopefully the Brewers can snap this losing streak. Jeremy Hellickson, whose name has been out there a lot in the trade circles, against Brent Suter. Brewers will have Junior Guerra pitch Sunday. And that's it. Ball game over. The Brewers go down 6-1 to the Phillies. And a 6-game losing streak, the longest of the year. Freddie Galvis with 3 runs batted in tonight, including a 2-run homer. A 4-run 6th inning separated the Phillies from the Brewers tonight. Aaron Nola wins for the 7th time. He was terrific. 7 innings and a career best 9 strikeouts. Matt Garza suffers the loss. Brewers have not won on this road trip as of yet. Time for Brewers Live. Jeff Grayson standing by in our Fox Sports Wisconsin studio. Let's check in with Jeff now. Brewers Live, ready to go.